any questions unless they are inside the chamber. Thank you very much.
Good morning and good morning, Minister and the department. My name is Matlodi Masako.
I see your hand, Member Dagmo.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and MEC and officials of the department. It's Cameron Dagmo. I will be joining in the chamber just at tea time. I want to apologize for that, Chair, and to the officials. It's Cameron Dagmo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I will give over to the Minister.
I'm Anton Bordel, MEC responsible for local government, environmental affairs and development planning. You want the team to introduce themselves?
I think, Minister, you have introduced us. Everybody's going to get an opportunity to speak. So before you answer a question, because all of you are going to get an opportunity to answer a question. So before you answer that question, I'll give an opportunity to introduce yourselves. Thank you very much. Minister, is there any opening remarks that you would want to pose?
Yeah, Chairperson, thank you very much. Starting off with failing critical infrastructure in municipalities due to continuous load shedding. So one of the issues that we've dealt with. It's also a threat to our economy. Coming out of COVID and then being hit very hard by continuous load shedding was quite disastrous I think, for the economy. Municipal main revenue was under huge pressure because the profit margins that they make on, and I must state it that it's revenue and not profits, because I don't think, and we must still do a study, I think, on the kind of profits municipalities make on electricity and these kind of services. I'm also a big believer that services should pay for themselves and that we must slowly over time move away from cross-subsidization. But the impact on municipal services caused by load shedding, especially on our water and wastewater treatment plants, was quite severe. And we had, as a department, our hands full to just keep water in the taps. Now, a lot of people won't like what I'm saying, but you can go without electricity. It's very difficult to go without water in our household. Water speaks to dignity and life, and it was crucial that we maintain the water services. During this period, we also realized the importance of partnerships. Partnerships throughout the year helped us to fill the gaps. Partnerships with training our councillors. I think something that the department decided to do to open up the minimum competency course to 20 councillors. That's a benefit that we will be the fruit of later stages of going forward in our democracy. Our Tucson program is still a flagship program, communicating, opening up government access to communities. And if we've looked at the constitutional judgment over public participation and how the court starts to view public participation, there's a lot of lessons for us in that judgment to learn. And going forward, we will need to be very much hands-on with public participation. You as a committee, ourselves as a department, that was a scaling judgment against the lack of public participation and how the courts will view public participations going forward, and the kind of information that you must share during that public participation, and also even the language that you speak in those kind of meetings is crucial going forward. Our youth development and empowerment opportunities that we created, I think we're proud of that. And then also, I think still a very strong point within this provincial government is our Premier's Coordinating Forum, the MINMA Forum, the JDMA forums, how we interact with our municipalities, help that everybody stay on the same page. Yes, we debate sometimes, and yes, everybody is not always happy with the agendas, but it's good to interact, it's good to talk to one another so that everybody can be on the same page. So from my side, Honourable Chair, again, it seems like we say it every year, so yeah, it seems like the space within government is not easing up. It's always a new crisis, so we start to move from crisis to crisis, and you need a dedicated team. And going forward with budget cuts, etc., it's going to be crucial to also fight for our officials so that they also get their rightful portion, because they do put in the hours, and our success is our people that work for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Will the HOD also be having something to say?
Good morning, Chairperson, members, and also Minister and colleagues. It has been the year-end review. We've done many things. I think what comes to mind as by the forward, it's just the entire 15-year integrated drought and water response plan, as well as the work that we're doing in relation to energy. Both water and energy are not necessarily provincial competencies in terms of Schedule 4B and 5B. But given our role that we play in relation to municipalities, our oversight, monitoring and support role, we had to play a significant role to increase the water resilience, energy resilience in the province. And I think together with that is the work that we have done in relation to disaster resilience in the province. Minister has touched on it. It's obviously the various citizen interface programs and projects to enhance service delivery among citizens and municipalities. And obviously the work that we've done in terms of the IGR, the JDMA, working together with municipalities to identify catalytic projects. And by collaborating on both vertical and horizontal level to reduce the overlap and the duplication that might exist. In conclusion, Chair, obviously, congratulations to the department, particularly also the Director of Finance and the entire management team and its staff, a 10th clean audit. And obviously, if you look at the achievements, it's a 97% achieved of our planned indicators, obviously with the balance being partially achieved, given the fact that those are demand-driven. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, thank you very much for those opening remarks. Colleagues, we have come to the end of a financial year, meaning that all the quarters of that you were able to present to the Standing Committee on Local Government in terms of your performance have been put together in one report. Today we'll be dealing with Part A from pages 5 to 22, and we'll be also dealing with Part B from pages 23 to 64. And lastly, we'll be dealing with Part D from pages 77 to 116. So members, if you would want to take it per part, or are you going to take it by A, B, and D? Member Maseko, since it's me and you so far.
Thank you very much. I think you can present all the parts that we have to deal with so that before 10 we are done, Chair. It's a clean audit. And I know you're a progressive chairperson, so that is very much possible by 10 you will be done. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, colleagues,
Okay.
then, yeah, we can start with A, B, and D.
Okay.
I'll give you an opportunity to engage you in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I don't have a lot of questions. And again, I need to just emphasize on congratulating the department in getting the audit outcome, qualified audit outcome, because it's one of the difficult departments that you have to empower the councils to make sure that service deliveries within the municipalities, and they have to take your advice, and you don't have the power to enforce it that much. They just have to take the tools of traders to give them to make sure that the communities, they do get the services that it's in the constitution that they receive them. But I want to find out in page 9, Minister, you talked about, which is a brilliant one, of the empowering the members of the public. I want to find out, how do you evaluate the civic education project, and how would you evaluate or measure that the success of it, to say that now this is something that will work for the communities, seeing that you highlighted, as you spoke to us, about the public participation, how important it is. So how are you going to make sure that you measure that? And I'm asking this question because we have engaged with the Auditor General, and one of the things that we are still trying to get a grip with, because their reporting is different for this financial year. They are doing their performance in a way, the performance auditing, and they're giving us the percentage of achieved, and the way they are doing it, we're still trying to get an understanding on it, because some of the things, it doesn't make sense to us, but I think we will meet each other halfway to have an understanding. Now, if you have something like this in your programs, now how are you going to measure that success, that whether it's you have achieved that or not? And the other one, it will be also on the project that was delayed, the CDAF, the Sustainable Infrastructure Development and Finance Facility project, that was delayed due to internal compliance processes. Maybe if you can find out what are those, and if you can share the details of the infrastructure projects that were funded through that CDAF, we'll appreciate that. And sure, you said up to 20, okay, you said all the things. On page 24 also, the department, if you can elaborate on which municipalities experienced instability due to changes in their municipal council, and how are you monitoring those now, and giving the support to that? And I think, to me, the most important part, it will be the sustainability of that support or interventions that we have put in place for those municipalities. If you can share with us on moving forward, in those, I know that is the coalition municipalities. Looking forward, how are you going to sustain those interventions? And it seems that is going to be our norm now. So as that is going to be our norm, what is the innovative way that you see as a department that you're going to put those measures in place to be something that becomes like a Bible for the coalition governments within the local government? I don't know if it really will be doable, but we can always have a vision in being innovative of what maybe can work to assist those municipalities, because at the end, the communities are the one that suffers when coming to that. Chair, I'm going to, just for now, allow you to do you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Member Maseko. Since it's only the two of us, I think we must have our cake and eat it. Minister, I'm not going to focus a lot on what Member Maseko has said, but I think what is important, it would also latch on in terms of the capacity of councillors and MACOM members. Yeah, but before I go to the question, I would ask this question that I've been asking since my first meeting of attending annual reports. You know, when they talk about local government, they say, no, your department, they've been doing very well. They're always on the clean. They've always been getting clean audits. And I pose the same question to the Premier. You've been consistent, especially during this term, getting clean, in terms of compliance, budget, and performance. You've been doing clean. And one would go to the level of saying, what is the next step for the department? You've been so consistent in making sure that, the internal controls are in place. You are able to do what is expected of you in terms of audit outcomes. because I get different responses to the same question, and one of the answers that the Premier said is that they are currently engaging with the AG to look at maybe what is the next step. Because that is my question. As a department, what is the next step? Because seemingly now you've mastered, the issue of compliance, internal controls are in place and everything. So what would be the next step according to your own opinion? Let's go to training. Minister, training is always welcomed. It's a great thing, but it becomes a problem when training does not give us the results that we envisage. The reason I'm saying is that I would like to hear from you as a department. Would you say the training that you have given to your councillors, especially to MPEG person, have been able to assist them as municipalities to make sure that they fulfill their oversight responsibility, making sure that there's reactive measures, not reactionary measures, but proactive measures in terms of making sure that the little that we have in municipalities in terms of finances is actually spent where it's supposed to be spent. And the third one, Minister, would be also on page 25. It's on the CDWs. It says that there was a march which was attended by around 400 in the Breede Valley area. Then the question I'd like to pose, in terms of your CWs, how often do you train your CWs on issues of gender-based violence? Then if you quote a specific number, how did you come to that particular number? What measures did you use to determine that is the specific number of individuals that have been participating? And then I think those are the first round of questions from me and Member Maseko. I will give over to the department. Thank you. You want another one?
Yeah, I want to add on your question on the CW on the March, the page 25. I want to find out to what an extent, because I know this is it's not the, I can say not the CDW, it's not the norm. It was an extra something that they were doing. So to what an extent was the department responsible, the social development, involved in as they were arranging that, and how are they interlinking? Because the mandate of the social development will be the one that gives the support to whatever that the CDW identifies. So how are you interlinking to work in that? And is it ongoing also? To me, what is important sometimes in things that you are innovative in creating is the sustainability of whatever that you are doing that is extra from the department. So are you going to sustain this, or it was the once-off thing that you initiated that it won't continue? And if it has to continue, to what an extent is the department going to play a part with the CDWs to make sure that you continue with that program? Thanks, Chair.
Over to the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, when we start off answering, we must just understand also this, all the answers, everything happens within a national context. And why I want to start off by that is saying that I expect severe budget cuts. I expect that our country is in severe economic trouble. That will play out over the next 2 to 3 years. So all the beautiful plans we can make it's going to be cramped in. Local governments will lose some of their grants. Provinces is going to, so it's going to become a very difficult space. So just don't in a year's time tell me I've lied. We've got all the good ideas and wonderful ideas, but at the end of the day, you need to have a budget to make it work. And you need to understand the pressure on the personnel within the department. As you can see, we all here this morning, we're setting a good example for the standing committee. We've been in office since 6 o'clock this morning. That's how we roll, you know. It's we're there to serve the people. But on a serious note, Honourable Chair, that I'm worried about, and not only this department, on the all our personnel. We've got good personnel. We've seen it during the last disasters. Our achievements is thanks to them, and we, from your oversight role in a standing committee, and from our side, we just need to be cognizant of that. On ward committees, and I think the Directorate has done well establishing the ward committees. Now, these things happen in phases. We must have a lot of patience with these things. And the directors here, he can also attest to that. Working with the various grades of municipalities, there's various tensions and various agendas that they need to deal with. But the first objective was to get the ward committees established. The focus now will be, and also in-house, we will need to have a debate on, after reading the judgment on the Khoisan bill and the constitutional judgment, I think the ward committee must play a much stronger role in public participation. And how are we going to do that? And how are we going to pull in? And I'm still of the opinion that municipalities must have cycles of meetings, and that you cannot just have a ward committee and everything just disappear after that. So municipalities will need to start to have their ward committee meetings following with the committee meetings of the council, following the executive mayoral's meeting or the council meeting, so that the one meeting flow into the other, and that you join that up with minutes that speaks to decision making, action minutes. I think that's the kind of things that we must now introduce in going forward. I think, HOD, you can touch on the CDAF, and you've got your directors here as well. Coalitions make it very difficult, even more difficult. I think that was a new curveball to this directorate, also with the ward committees. Everything just flows throughout the system. Now, coalitions, yes, we've been used to, but coalitions have stepped up to a new level, more coalitions. And I will argue personally, it's a personal argument, that we actually haven't got coalitions, because a lot of people and the academia will tell you we've got this is the future, coalitions. Well, my experience of coalitions is not good, because it's not coalitions we talk about king-making politics. And king-making politics doesn't serve the broader community. So I'm very worried how we're going to package that legally, and how we're going to bring that together. It's going to be a big challenge for all of us. And that impacts on service delivery in municipalities at the end of the day. If you want service delivery in a municipality, you must have a stable council, stable political environment, stable administration, focus on core services, etc., then things will start to work. The capacity of councillors is crucial for me to keep on building that. I think the different organizations, us, SALGA, National, everybody training, I think there's more than enough training material, actually too much. I think it's how we can bring our training together so that it can have an impact at the end of the day. I think there's too much training actually, and too little time for councillors to spend in the councils and on the ground in their communities. It's something that we need to balance, and through our training program, SALGA's training program, national training program, we need to have a thorough discussion how we can dovetail that so that we can have a bigger impact. I think the opening up the MMC training was a brilliant idea, because that's training on a different level. That's also training for future. If a councillor doesn't make the next round, we all know politics, then they've got a piece of paper which can help them in another job, etc. So I think that's a very good piece of training that the department has embarked on. Impacts, yeah, the impact training is there. We work with impacts. They're in the legal framework. I still think there will be a much bigger impact if we get the internal audit units independent, but that's a personal opinion, Chairperson, and I will keep on nagging and dragging till the day I'm not there anymore. But I really think if you want to understand municipal finance, you need to put more emphasis on the internal audit units within municipalities, get them independent, because they can be then the ears and the eyes within a municipality. I mean, when we picked up problems in municipalities, it's too far down the line, and then there's a massive legal process because the courts sees municipalities as independent spheres. Then the independents start to being argued, and by the time we get into a municipality, they're down and out, and to turn that municipality is just very difficult. With that, HOD, over to you.
Thanks, Minister. Thanks, Chairperson. So, as the Minister alluded, we have, just in relation to councillor training, we've subjected about 20 councillors to the MMC. I think it's a fantastic program. It actually provides councillors that do participate in it understanding of how entire municipality functions. And the feedback that we are getting now, they are completing the 2 last modules, and the feedback that we are getting from the councillors that do participate in it is that the training is excellent, and I would like to extend it to other councillors. Obviously, we've piloted that this year. It's given the funding limitations. We will see going forward how we further enroll additional councillors in that program. But I think it's an excellent program to help municipality, particular councillors, to understand. Both Ida and Sandra can actually provide further detail to it. Zuka and Craig can just talk about the civic education programs, the impact evaluation that we are doing on it. So the functioning of the ward committees, what are we doing to assess the effectiveness and whether we are actually hitting the right mark on it. So the Directorate has undertaken an impact evaluation assessment to determine what are some of the gains and what are some of the areas that requires improvement going forward. CDF, Ida and Marius can maybe respond to that, as well as to the experiencing challenges in relation to...
My apologies, HOD. I think there's a member that just wants to raise a point of order, and I think it's important that we recognize so that we can deal with it and continue our meeting. Member Dagmo?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My apologies to raise this issue now. My hand was up. But Chair, I just want to ask, because I'm informed, that you've made a ruling that those virtually, would only be able to observe and not ask questions. I think just in terms of the founding principles in our Constitution, the issue of accountability, I'd just like to ask, in terms of what rule have you made, this particular ruling that members who are in the meeting, I'm also in this meeting, cannot ask a question? Could you just please cite the rule in the rules or the provisions in the Constitution or any other legislation which has led you to make such a decision that I'm not allowed to ask questions because I'm joining this meeting virtually?
Thank you very much, Member Dagmo, for that question. That's the ruling that I've made as per the notice of a meeting. And because I had several requests for people asking for links, and I have refused them. So on a rule of fairness, I think it's proper that I stick to my principle of saying that the notice of meeting was in person, and then everybody that wants to participate must attend in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't want to, you've obviously made a ruling, but I just want to place for the record that you haven't provided any authority for that ruling in terms of our rules, but I abide by your ruling. Thank you.
It is in terms of Rule 82. Member Maseko?
Thank you very much. I was going to say is in terms of the Rule 92, that's 1. And 2, if member had a concern about the notice of the meeting that is in person, not visual, surely he got that on the programming authority, on the program of the Parliament months ago, if not weeks ago, and he could have raised that with you by email, but not in the meeting when we are interrogating the annual reports. And remember, if you can just try to get into the car to move towards the parliament, you'll be in the house, and then we can continue with the interrogation of the annual reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Maseko. Apologies once again. HP, you may continue.
Thanks, Chairperson. So the Minister has dealt with the question around the coalitions. May I just add that the national government, the Department of together, SAGA has in the process of developing a framework for coalitions, and that is now doing the rounds for further consultation on it. Just in terms of what now, Chairperson? So we are planning a sort of a planning session for the department. I think it's to do an environmental scan. There's lots of things happening currently, particularly in the local government environment. The Auditor General is no longer also focusing on the regulatory audit of the department, but they're keeping this department together with the Provincial Treasury, together with the Department of the Premier, responsible for the output service delivery of municipalities. How do we work together? So they go and audit municipalities, but they keep the three departments collectively responsible in the event that the municipalities are having challenges. How do we deal with it? How we respond to it? So it's no longer just focusing internally on the regulatory audit, and that we have to deal with. Another point, Chairperson, is the transversal projects that we are involved in. I mean, we play a significant role in G4J in relation to water and energy. I mean, there's a huge focus on water and energy currently in the province, and I think this department, together with the Department of the Premier, in relation to energy, is playing a critical role. Water, we are leading it, given the fact that it's also a transversal risk in the province. And so we also play a significant role in relation to well-being and safety. Those are the other priorities of the Western Cape Provincial Government. The last role that the department is playing is in relation to collaboration vertically between the three spheres of government, national, provincial, and local, as well as other stakeholders, and also horizontal amongst the provincial departments. And how do we get through the initiatives the province, national government closer to municipalities where we collaborate and so on. So we've also used the mechanism of the JDM and also the integrated management framework that, together with the Department of Environmental Affairs, Development Planning, the Department of the Premier, and the Provincial Treasury, we are playing a critical role. So the department is actually stretched beyond this normal legislative mandate. There are now implied mandates that we need to undertake, and there's also incidental mandates that we are undertaking. So it's actually stretching the department's resources at this point in time. Yeah, and I think perhaps just on the training, Ida and Sandra can answer, and then on the CDWs, Hein can also respond to that. Between the just the impact of the citizen education programs, both Nazuka and Craig, if they wish, can respond to that. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go first. I heard a different sequence, but thank you very much, Chairperson. Just on your question in respect of training on gender-based violence, it is ongoing. Information is shared amongst the team to create a continuous awareness about the real issues. I think maybe I should also just say that, as we all know, and it's supported by empirical data, that gender-based violence is a huge issue in our society. And then you had just the issue on what you specifically raised on the number of people attending the Worcester awareness, which was also supported by a member of or was president of the executive committee of the local municipality. We had the Department of the Premier social media colleagues present. So there are pictorials, which was, and also, so the evidence in terms of the number of people attended both on video as well as through the pictures bears testimony in terms of the number of people attended. I can also say that a whole host of other people were reached because we prioritized this specific campaign across 2 regions, and there were various dialogues, etc., etc. So, but on the specific question that you are asking, there is evidence that can see the number of people that that has attended, and we were very happy that at that level, through Twitter, it's now X, the march was covered, and also in the newspapers, the local newspapers. To what extent social development part of this? Memo Seko is correct that they are the lead department in terms of this. And as I have said, the challenges around gender-based violence transcends beyond narrowed up departmental mandates. We are working with social development. Just to also contextualize, we have the Community Development Worker Program works with the Department of Social Development, Community Development practitioners. So if I just think on the Karoo, I think there is one, I'm speaking under correction, one community development practitioner for Beaufort West. But there are various other programs. So we work collaboratively with them. The partnership of players that have been involved here is very, very extensive. Social development, SEPs, correctional services, Department of Justice's Tutuzela centers, etc. We are actually a question around sustainability and how do we take it forward. Because of the societal importance, we are taking it on. There's a 365 days drive and campaign throughout the different departments in the space. So we are part of that, and to raise continued awareness around that. Our approach is to really, as a partnership program, to work with our colleagues in social development and others. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chair, taking the matter in terms of sustainability on the Tusong, on the GBV, also when we roll out the Tusong outreaches to the far outlying areas, we always ensure that there's a presence of a person who creates awareness on the GBV. So it just keeps it on the radar as one of the key components. Just to touch base with what my HOD has indicated on the civic education. So we pick it up because we assess the IDP process in terms of the public participation. So we also pick it up when we assess IDPs in terms of the level of participation of people. You remember that in the previous standing committees, we had indicated that our first component on civic education was to first share the videos with municipalities, and municipalities are utilizing them. But we then took it upon ourselves to also run outreaches in terms of the civic education videos. So we other than the fact that the day that Craig facilitates the session together with his team, and sees the levels of participation of people in the meeting. We also pick it up in terms of the assessment of IDPs. We're also hoping to also pick it up in terms of the level of complaints that people now are beginning to hold their municipalities, their leaders, their ward councillors to account, whether they send those complaints to ward committees or whether they are directly sending them to municipalities. So we're hoping to also pick it up in terms of the level of accountability. And then the last component is what the HOD has indicated. We, at the beginning of not this term, the previous term, we had done a diagnostic assessment in as far as public participation is concerned. We're focusing at that stage on ward committees. We're now coming back to do broader in terms of the assessment of participation in public participation, and we're looking at 3 components. One, looking at the capacity of municipalities and as far as public participation is concerned, and we're doing all 24 local municipalities in the metro. And then on the second level, we're zooming into specifically 5 municipalities, 1 per district, to then zoom in and get to understand the level of participation in those areas. But the third component, which for the first time we've brought in, is to actually go to the members of the public and that understand some of the reasons or factors for them to participate much better, or what are some of the reasons why there's citizen apathy in some areas where we're not necessarily seeing as many people that should be participating, whether it is in the public participation in the IDP process or in general in terms of participation in government programs. So we're hoping to see what will come out of that. And then on the basis of what you see, then we can determine to what extent we can then relook at our support programs or to try and increase the level of participation of people. So we don't know what we will get, but we're hoping that the lessons that we get will be able to inform our support programs moving forward.
Thank you, colleagues, for those responses. Is there more?
Just in terms of the training, I don't think training will ever go away. There will always be a need because we've got such a diverse group of councillors in municipalities. So we have tried to just change the training in terms of focusing just on knowledge and skills, and then focusing on more formal kind of training that the MMC provides. And then also we work closely with the governance unit, which is Kamal Makan's unit in terms of hands-on when it comes to, for example, the impact training. At the moment, in terms of the MMC, we had 20 intakes, but there are just 17 left at the moment because obviously councillors move and change. So just in terms of that, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ashudi. Mama Sega, you follow up?
Thank you very much. And I think what I want to find out also from the CDW engagement with the communities when coming also to your public hearing, and I'll make an example of from the legislature, from the provincial side, when coming to the legislation. So when we go for the public hearings, it's rare that we'll see a CDW. Do they have also a system? Do we have a system in place of interlinking from the legislature with the CDWs to synthesize the communities? Like if a legislation coming, like your NHI, which impacts on the communities on the ground, like your expropriation bill, which impacts on, do you interlink? Do they have a certain responsibility for that to help community to understand what does it mean to have a legislation when we come for the public hearing, or that is not in part of their responsibilities from them? And I'm asking this because if you are going to go on the gender-based violence, it's really something that is including the provincial responsibility, the mandate of the social development, even though it taps into every other department. And another one is for the training, just a follow-up. And I mean, we engaged with the Department of Local Government in going from municipality into municipality with their treasury. And I wonder if the interpretation of capacity within the municipalities, if we still have the meaning of it. What do we mean when we say the councillors training for capacity in the municipalities? Are we maybe looking at the one side while it's more of the officials that we have to look at? Because some of the explanations from the municipalities is surely what we're picking up, that, but this official should have said to the councillors, we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when we talk about the capacity in the municipalities, like we looked at your Canaland, your Beaufort West, you asked yourself that, and even to a certain extent, Langsbeck, you ask yourself that, is it the councillors or is it the officials that we maybe have to look at, in a way, saying the municipalities have to twin for them to have a best practices to sort of work together to have an understanding, what is it that I can do when coming to this problem that is there? Because the explanations that we're getting as we engage with the councillors after the audit outcomes, some were surprised of saying the value to the training that you are doing, is it really, are they receiving and using it, or is attending, like Minister said, to get a certificate, then I'm fine with it? Or where are we diagnosing that wrongly so, to understand that we also said that maybe the junior officials have to be the ones because they are not being chopped and changed as the politics happens within the councillors, that they can be a continuation of what you advise them or what needs to happen within the municipalities. So that is one of the things that I don't know, it's just more of a comment and a question of the legislation. Thanks, Chair.
Member Murray, thank you very much for joining us.
My apologies for being late, Chair. The traffic was very, very bad this morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Murray, member of the committee.
No, thank you very much. I'll also just have a follow-up, Minister, in terms of coalitions, maybe because I have my own experiences as a person. I speak to you on a daily basis. You know my frustrations, and I think me and Member Maseko and Member America went to Durban, I think a few weeks back. There was a lot of public accounts members there as well. We went to one breakaway session, and there was a comment made by the facilitator that specifically in KwaZulu-Natal, the majority, there's a specific number which I cannot quote now, that of councillors who are not able to read and write. And of course, someone was from home there, disputed that. Now, and I also want to link it to in terms of your monitoring and support initiatives to municipalities. You know, the fact that there is a majority of councils, or there is councils where, you know, council members can't read, can't write. How does it assist you as a department in terms of your monitoring and support initiatives in making sure that our councils do what is expected from them? Or have you as a department maybe thought of something saying, maybe we should actually look at advocating, you know, maybe, you know, the powers that are higher than us, of making sure, or of trying to bring in something to make sure that, you know, those legislators or those people that are able to run our councils are able to do the basics. Because imagine you go to a council chamber, you can't even read the agenda. What contribution are you going to make? What kind of decisions are you going to make? So that is something that is worrisome for me, Minister. And I am not trying to be discriminating against anyone, but it is something of concern. Thank you very much.
See, let me try and, let me have the first bite. Sometimes, we need to understand that our country do have a history. So it's a very sensitive topic, first of all. Secondly, over my 25 years in government, I've seen councillors that can barely read or write being the best councillors you will get, and I've seen people with doctorate degrees that's being a complete failure. So qualifications itself doesn't mean you're going to be a good or bad councillor, I can promise you that. It makes it very difficult for us as a team to determine the level to pitch your training, etc. And it's an ongoing process. Remember, we've started off a couple of years ago with the University of Stellenbosch, where we call it the Circle of Development. And the focus on that was especially politics is short-term, 5-year contracts that you can enter at any stage, doesn't matter which degree you've got, and you can exit after 4 years with a degree. So also to give people an opportunity that if they don't get back into the political domain, that they can have something that they can offer private sector to help. So it's an ongoing challenge. I think it's a question that political parties will need to deal with when they put together their lists. You've been part of writing an 8-hour exam last Sunday. So there's parties that starts those processes. And again, it doesn't mean you're going to be a perfect member of parliament, but it's putting those kind of checks and balances in place. I think going forward, what also just as important if we can sort out the politics within local government and parliament then you will attract competent people or officials. The councils that was mentioned, if you're a good official, and especially if you're young and you must start your career, do you want to start in one of those municipalities? Because you get pulled into a mud bath. That is a caution for cheap politicking, because we, as politicians, we can destroy people's lives. So we need to understand that it's a quite serious environment, and where we should actually all, doesn't matter if you're in government or in opposition, build the next generation of people who want to work in municipalities. A big challenge is going to be to get young people to join government sector because of this political mud path, and because they get drawn into a political dispensation. Role clarification is very simple in Article 53. It's clear. But because politicians still get involved in employment, there's an unhealthy relationship. So there's a lot of things that we need to debate and think about, but I also think that political parties will need to step up with their putting together their lists. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Perhaps just to add to the Minister and to the member Maseko. So, I mean, the councillors can blame the officials, or officials can blame the councillors. But important for us, I mean, we work with the councillors that are elected and obviously in council. But you find in some instances there are actually weak council decisions being made by council. So then officials are being blamed for that they haven't gotten advice or so. But there's a dual role, responsibility and accountability, both on councillors to understand the law, to understand what is allowed in law and how it functions in municipality. And that's why we've actually gone the route of the MMC, because all 18 or 24 modules will actually give councillors an understanding of how a municipality works and how it functions, and an understanding of the law. And if we can do more of that, I think we will have better council decisions in future. But we are training both councillors and officials. I mean, there's at the middle management level where we do some training to bring some of the officials through to senior management positions. But I mean, from our view, in some municipalities, we are working with those so to improve the quality of council decisions. And that is the work that we are currently also doing in terms of the councillors. There's no limitations. The minister has said, I mean, in terms of councillors, there's no requirements in terms of qualifications or experience. We've some couple of years ago also approached academic institutions to develop a program with us to ensure how do we train certain councillors that do not have a qualification, and how do they bring them through the system, and so on and so on. But at the time, I think there wasn't adequate interest to enroll for a program like that. Nezuko, just on the CDWs and Hein.
Just to be brief, Chair, on this one, Parliament is a partner. We're partnering with Parliament on the CDW program. They're a partner. They attend our public participation, Craig's engagements meetings. They also attend Monet's two-song program meetings. In as far as the CDW program, when there is new legislation, Parliament calls upon CDWs to assist in terms of mobilization and getting people into the venue. We have not focused on actually looking at the actual content in terms of awareness of what is contained in the legislation, but we assist Parliament as a partner to get people into the venue. So we will continue to explore our partnership with Parliament, and that we will be a partner as and when they require us. So if we get to that stage that they require us to assist in terms of engaging on the content, in terms of our awareness, we will partner with them. But in as far as mobilization or even spreading the information, if there are brochures available, they are our partner.
Yeah, just two very brief points. When we get the notification, the purpose of the legislation is shared with us and the related documentation. And I want to just, I can't not use this opportunity. The CDW program specifically was recognized by the current speaker for its role in getting the public involved whenever there's public hearings. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm not going to be tempted, but on CDWs, I still have to go home. I do. Member myself.
We can continue.
Yeah, more than welcome.
Okay. Chair, I'm excited to ask this question. It's on page 51. And to hear about the program of the activities for the traditional establishment of the of traditional institutional management. I'm excited to hear on that one, because the last time we engaged about that, it was the issue of, I asked the department, we've got the very different systems in the traditional leadership. So the Tswanas, the Zulus, the Xhosas, totally different. So when you go and say you're going to do the research and you are going to choose one, and I tend to believe that 478,000 program for was to try and find out which one. So if we can get the activities and expenditure of that 478, what were you doing? And maybe if you are at the implementation stage, which one did you choose to say this will be for Western Cape, that will work for the traditional affairs within the Western Cape? Because it's such a difficult one. And Chair, I'm excited to listen to that one and have another question.
Sorry?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my question relates to page 11. Page 11 states the Sustainable Infrastructure Development and Financing Facility Program, which was implemented by the department with the support of the French government, is tailored to offer solutions to infrastructure challenges that municipalities are faced with, et cetera, et cetera. My question, Chair, is infrastructure development is a focus area under the Vision Inspired Priority 2, so that's growth and jobs, in the province's strategic plan for 2020-2024. So the department has reported that a Sustainable Infrastructure Development and Finance Facility Project, or SIDAF, I think it's called, was delayed due to internal compliance. You see that on page 13. This resulted in expenditure during 2022 and 2023 financial year, but detail on the delayed project was not included. Chair, through you, can the department please explain and provide detail on why the project was delayed? And also if the department can provide details on the infrastructure projects that are funded through SIDAF.
Member Marie, you know, I didn't want to stop you because you said, unfortunately, that's what happens if you come to a meeting and we are already moving, because the question that you are posing has already been posed by Member Maseko. So I won't allow that particular question to be reposed. So unfortunately, the question that you're asking has been posed. So if you got another one, you're more than welcome to post. But if you're not, then we'll continue. Thank you very much. Member Maseko?
Excited for my question. The
Okay.
department is going to respond.
Yeah, before you answer HOD, let us just go to page 34. I just want more details in terms of what process you take to determining which municipalities are going to support, because I see you in terms of the assessments on impacts. What criteria do you use to decide I'm going to Silegu local municipality or are you going to Maseko local municipality? I just want to know. And also in terms of your assessment so far, because you've met your target of saying 10, what have you learned? What are the things that you are worried about? Or what are the things that are exciting you? And that is on page 34. And then let's go to page 38. In what committees? I know everybody talks about public participation, but I just want to know, in terms of the department, in terms of your role, how do you monitor that duly elected public representatives, especially ward councillors, are actually recognized when it comes to ward committees? Because I've been battling with these things for the last decade now. How does one determine a functional ward committee? Does the establishment of a ward committee determine functionality? Does having 5-minute meetings of a ward committee determine functionality? Give us more in terms of how does one, define a functional ward committee, and how do you monitor that duly elected ward councillors, regardless of whether you're in government or in opposition, by virtue of being elected, that you have been recognized, and then you are able to fulfill your role as a member of that particular ward when it comes to ward committees? And let's go to CWP, Community Works Program. What role do you play as a department when it comes to this particular program? I think that's the most safest question. Thank you very much.
Good, Chair. So just in terms of...
Sorry.
Just to add on your training, I just want to find out why on page 49, you mentioned that on the deviation, you added the senior, the supervisors. Why didn't you include them from the initial training that you had to add with them at a later stage? Page 49, at the top there, the 3.2 sub-program 3.2 on disaster management and fire services, because there's a deviation of the supervisors that were not included in the original target, and then you included them later. So why they were not part of from the onset? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, so thank you very much. Just in terms of the question, the legislation, you know that it has been suspended given the lack of public participation. But the court has ruled that it actually continues. Nonetheless, they've got 2 years to correct it by means of the public participation process. It must go back to National Parliament. The person responsible in the department is Mr. Luengo Albert. And perhaps he can provide more detail around just the expenditure and how we've approached it. I'm going to ask just Ida and Kamal just to reflect on the impacts, the criteria of assessments, and what they've learned and what was worrying us, exciting. And then both Nazuka and Craig also on the ward committees and the CWP, and then Collins is on the supervisor training in terms of sub-program 3.2. Thanks.
Thanks, Ajodi. Thanks, Chair. Member Mseko, there was one day, I think the committee wanted that full presentation, but unfortunately that day, I think the gremlins got into the system. This is a subject that requires a lot of interaction in terms of explaining the understanding, because partly it's a new journey. You're right by indicating that in other provinces, there has been a recognition of the traditional leaders. And in the province, if I can just go back, when there was a recognition of the traditional leaders, there was a commission that was established to actually do an investigation in terms of looking at the claims and the disputes around traditional leadership. The similar approach has been taken for this, for Khoisan leadership as well, where the commission on Khoisan matters was established. And the commission basically handles the process. It has been established for a period of 5 years, which ends sometime August 2026. And during that period, what also is important is that there is an application process which one has to follow. Now, at this particular stage, what that means is that the commission is the only body that actually undergoes the process of recognition. They do, when we apply, for instance, when people are coming to us, we tell them to go straight to the commission where they can apply there. And the commission, what it has done now and what they are currently busy with is what is called applicant member investigation, where they come and sit with somebody who has done an application and they take them through the whole process in terms of the requirements of what they are looking for in terms of the legislation. I don't know if I need to be point by point. I'm just going to read in terms of the Act what is required when someone is applying. One, the commission has to assess whether the person has the group or the people who are applying, they've got a history of self-identification, which is of the members of the community consent, or as belonging to a unique community distinct from other communities. This is now the requirement in terms of the Act. Two, whether they observe a distinctive established Khoisan customary law and customs, whether it's subject to a system of hereditary or elected Khoisan leadership, which ensures structures exercising authority in terms of customary law. So basically, the commission has to do that that investigation where they have to assess those. So as it is, Chair, as the department, we're just preparing ourselves to be able to implement. By that, we actually doing our own investigation separately to understand some of the challenges that one may experience in terms of as they begin to apply, but also in terms of the policies and the legislation that are put in place for in case when things come into play. But as it is, as HOT has indicated, the Act was declared invalid, but that invalidity has been suspended. I think it ends around 29 May 2025. During that period, if the department or if Parliament, because that is against Parliament, the National Parliament and Provincial Parliaments, hasn't gone back to do the proper consultation processes, then that invalidity may come into effect. But if we've retabled or we came with a different legislation, that could not happen.
Is there a follow-up, Mama? Okay.
Thank you. So that being said, on the next financial, the 2023-2024, we are not going to see this program until the national has indicated the way forward with it, or what? Because you are here, it was you're going to develop a program for that will fall under the traditional. Are we going to see it, or you are going to hold on it, or what's going to happen based on the what national can say or cannot say?
In terms of what national has indicated, as I've indicated, that it was declared invalid on 30 May this current year. However, that invalidity has been suspended for a period of 24 months. Now, what the department has done, the National Department, they looked for a legal opinion in terms of what could they do in the meantime. And what they have indicated is that in the meantime, they will continue with the implementation. So it means that on our side, we will then be also preparing, which is why we're also doing an investigation in terms of understanding what the challenge is and so on. So for us at this present moment is just to prepare, but also what we do is we interact with the commission on a regular basis and see where we can provide the necessary support when it comes to issues of awareness and so on. But at this stage, we're not dealing with the issues of recognition as the province.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the question posed relating to the impacts, just the criteria that you've asked that we use and we apply as well. There's a number of factors that one takes into account as well. So obviously, if you've got a new chairperson of the impact, you want to assess the functionality and the manner in which he or she chairs that meeting, leads that meeting, and then obviously performs that oversight function of impact itself as well. Then obviously also part of our monitoring aspect, we will determine, we will sort of receive concerns relating to the functionality of a particular impact at the municipality as well. So that will also determine our assessment of that particular municipality's impact as well. Concerns raised, I think important aspect is the remedial steps that impacts would suggest to management relating to concerns that would come about. So we're talking about your fruitless, wasteful, irregular expenditure, or even your unauthorized expenditure as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as Minister Nazuko alluded to earlier, a lot of effort went into ensuring that all our ward committees were established. We were the first province in the country, and we also had the first 2 municipalities in the country to establish their ward committees. Now, experience has shown us when it comes to the first 2 years of the term, there's a lot of hype in terms of being a ward committee member. And we're currently now in the 2nd year of the current term. So functionality at this stage is not so problematic. But as we approach the 3rd year and 4th year, then functionality becomes a serious challenge for us. And then we have vacancies, a lot of vacancies. But in terms of our monitoring, how we monitor the functionality of ward committees on a quarterly basis, municipalities are required to submit a report on their ward committee functionality and also public participation in general. And the first part of your question in terms of the role of the council on the ward committee. So obviously, a ward councillor chairs the ward committees, and we have established ward committees in all our municipalities and the councillor chairs. But what's important to note is that in addition to chairing the councillor chairing the ward committee meetings, the code of conduct for councillors also requires that councillors on a quarterly basis must have community report back meetings. It's in the code of conduct. So as part of our quarterly monitoring of ward committees, we've also included a section for municipalities to report to us whether those councillors are having their meeting in terms of the code of conduct. But when it comes to the functionality of ward committees, we have functionality indicators that we use to measure whether those ward committees are functional. Amongst other, they obviously have to attend their meetings. The ward committee policy would prescribe how often they meet. They need to ensure that they have sector or geographical or block meetings. So in other words, those sectors or block or geographical areas that they represent, we want to see proof that prior to the ward committee meeting, you had a meeting with your sector so that service delivery issues emanating from those meetings are escalated to your ward committee meeting for the necessary attention to be escalated to the municipality for the necessary intervention. So that feedback is very important. And what we also want to see is that after you had meetings, feedback is also provided. So there's this functionality criteria that we measure. But in addition to the quarterly reports that they submit, what we also do as a department, we randomly visit ward committee meetings. We obviously, due to capacity constraints, we can't be everywhere at the same time, but whenever we are in the different districts and with the colleagues from our chief directorate, when they attend meetings for their area of responsibility, and we find out they, for instance, Morne is going to Central Karoo, we would ask Morne, there's ward committee meetings, can you go measure? And then we will have a checklist and to show, was there a quorum? Was the agenda, etc., etc., etc. And if there's any areas of concern, then we will obviously intervene I, on a regular basis, meet with speakers. I go to the SALGA Speakers Forum. So if we have any challenges regarding the functionality, I report it there. And obviously, with the request that the speakers who, in terms of the Structures Act now, the Amended Structures Act, has taken over the responsibility for board committees and for public participation, so that they can obviously intervene and ensure that challenges are addressed before it gets out of hand. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So just around the training, so every year, just in terms of the wildfire season, so in preparation for our wildfire season, we do quite a bit of training. The one is a fire and safety certificate, which every person that goes out and works on a fire, on a wildfire must have. So that is our compliance to Occupational Health and Safety Act. And then what we also have is we do what we call incident command training for the supervisors of those teams. Now, it's not training you can do remotely. It's practical training. You have to be on the ground. You have to simulate fires, etc. So during the COVID period, for example, we had quite a shortfall because we weren't able to do all that face-to-face training. We did a limited amount. So the other thing also is that we get approached by municipalities who appoint seasonal firefighters as well. So what you get is you get like a subscription to this kind of training. And what we try to do is just to address the shortfall that we're still making up as far as COVID is concerned, because it is, the ratio instructor to students is quite important, considering it's a safety type course. So then when we got these requests, we were able to accommodate another training course, and that's why we did one extra. Thanks.
Mari, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in a lot of our oversight visits this year, one of the things that have come up, particularly in struggling municipalities, was the implementation of MSCOA. And it piqued my interest when we were talking about impacts and how the functionality of municipalities was monitored. I was just curious to know to what extent is MSCOA considered by the department in assessing the functionality of these municipalities? How will we look at it going forward? One of the major issues, just to frame this, that was identified was that the systems being used to ensure MSCOA compliance and therefore to ensure that we receive clean audit or actually know what the revenue looks like or lack thereof wasn't functional. And I understand that there is work done in that regard with Treasury, but of course this might be a consideration to local government as well. So if I could just get a bit of insight into that, please.
Mosego?
Thank you very much. Adding to that question, maybe the affordability, how is going to tackle the issue of the affordability, because one that was highlighted to us was the affordability of municipality not being able to afford to be on the same level with like your Mossel Bay, buying whatever that they say, the system that they have to use to be the same, for their reporting to be on the same level. And they were talking about that they cannot afford that as a municipality. It was Linksberg that was saying they cannot afford that. So if maybe can touch on how do you assist in that municipality or municipality like that to be able to afford that. And another question for me is, I asked this question to the social development, asking about their diagnostic assessment of the need for the social workers. Looking at the organogram, when was the last time they looked at that and to react to the demand there as they do the assessment of the needs? And they said 2010. So I'm going to ask the local government, looking at the need, especially on the disaster, not on any other thing. Looking at the disaster now from, Western Cape is a champion in that, and we need to really salute each and every disaster worker, from being a cleaner in that centers to those ones who are jumping off the helicopters. We really appreciate them and salute them. But looking at the population has increased, that we are on 7.4. And more disasters happening than natural with the global warming, plus the human disaster that are created. Do we have enough work component to react to the needs or the demands out there of the disasters, or we'll never have enough workforce to react to that? And then if I have to have to be a genie, looking at the fiscal constraints that we do have now, what will be the ideal way of dealing with the disasters when coming to the local government? And I'm talking about this because we went to Matsigama and we listened to the Matsigama councillors when they were talking about the reaction to the disaster there, that it was quite an interesting engagement. And how do we go about to, when we are a family, that this child, I will assist with this one permanently, much as I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, but I still have to go an extra mile to assist the child with 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the dependency for service deliveries will be sometimes in the disasters, as nature doesn't give us the notice of what is it that is going to do. We just have to do that. Now, going back to the question is, how are we going, or if the department has updated the demand as they see it happening for the workforce for our communities to really be helped when in need, in some of the rural areas especially. Thank you very much.
I'll give the department to answer. Thank you.
Chair, if you give us the whole budget, there will be one department, and that will be local government. We can do all. That's why I also started off with the finances. I year on year, I fight for disaster management, because I think we owe it to them that they get the right investment into equipment, and then also the right investment into training. And Colin must come in here, but I can tell you my experience is also, you must remember that the success of a disaster management is that everybody must know their role and everybody must step up, all departments. It's not disaster. Now, people will phone me about food parcels during a flood. It's not disaster management. Now, I can tell you, as we sit here, social services, if people being cut off, like now in the Dorans, then they will tell you that the municipality must go and register the people who don't have food to eat. Okay, with their name and ID number. Now, they at that stage might not have an ID. Okay, then that list must go back to the municipality. They must verify it. Okay, then that verified list must go to the provincial offices. Then the provincial offices must verify it. Then it must go to national. Okay, by that time we might as well start with the funeral, because you're not going to get food to people. So why I'm mentioning this is our own law, our own legal system to curb corruption. If you're in a disaster center, things must happen quickly if you want to save lives. I think over the years, we've built the best system in Africa. It doesn't mean we're where we want to be. I think still that we need money to invest in pre-warning systems, because Colin must attest to this, that the weather services giving us time and telling us, with the KZN floods now, being able to tell them 48 hours beforehand, floods is coming, warning 6. Now they move in, they can get people out of harm's way if they've got the right systems. And we must keep on investing, because these things will not disappear. It will not disappear. And if you add population growth, economic growth, people do live in low-lying areas. So it's going to be pressure on the disaster management system. And my call is that we must keep on investing in the system. Colin, maybe you.
Thank you, Minister. I think the important thing really is we'll never have enough. there's no country in the world that will have enough. We have very good systems in place of partnerships with other provinces. The minister alluded to KZN. When they had that major flood last year, they requested through our HOD for us to go and assist. So we were able to go there and help. And we were the first province there, but there was generally other provinces started arriving. So we were able to help each other out. And we have the same, if we have that need, we can do it. My staff is around 35 people, but disaster management in the Western Cape is a couple of thousand people, because it's the firefighters, it's the EMS, it's even the Seabird Rescue Center. It's whoever we require for that disaster. So we do an inordinate amount of planning. And that's really your force multiplier, is to work out what is it that you would need for a particular type of disaster and make sure you've got those people on board. And we meet with them often, and we bring them in and we exercise. And that's really what's very important. With the rural areas, we have what's called the JOC system, the Joint Operations Center system. So ourselves at the province, and then every single district municipality disaster center is on the same software system. So we can communicate with each other, we can share information. And the early warnings is critical. So with the last two floods, we activated our disaster centers in advance of the flood happening. Because what we're able to do is we are able to, when we get the warning, through the software system that we developed, we are able to pick up which areas will be affected. So if I can use an example, during the first flood, we got warnings of water that was going to be released and that it would be reaching the town of Claver. We were able to use the system that we've got to model which parts of Claver would be affected, and we evacuated those people. So you don't have to evacuate a huge amount of people. The model tells you what you have to do. So by making use of those, call it force multipliers, we're actually able to achieve quite a bit. I think our biggest challenge is the fact that we've got less and less resources. We don't have the kind of military resources we used to have, and we don't have police resources we used to have. So we really have to step in for that as well. But I think the important thing is to make sure that the system in the Western Cape works. And that's what we work towards. Thank you.
Chairperson, good morning, Ida Barnard, Department of Local Government. Honourable Member, yes, MSCOA falls directly in the responsibility of the Provincial Treasury. I think that goes without saying. But what is very important is that if we support a municipality like Beaufort West is a good example, we go in together and we do an integrated support strategy with them, but also with all of the other departments. That can be DEDP and DDAT as the members saw. Now, MSCOA would fall in their area of responsibility, but given the specific pressures at the moment, we are meeting almost weekly with Treasury to see how we can help them to do that. So MSCOA is one thing, but the challenge in specifically Beaufort West is slightly broader. It's around the financial system. So the financial system wasn't probably properly installed, staff weren't properly trained, and then obviously now it plays out in the MSCOA field because the line items doesn't move through properly. So MSCOA gets the credit skuld, but actually it's more of a systems problem. So we're picking it up in our Section 154 support package. And more specifically, we've asked Gary Birch to assist us to also look at the contract that the municipality has with the service provider. So finance is coming in from the financial side. We will come in up from the contract management side. In the middle, we need to help them to solve the problem. So we're working much closer together, even with the Department, for instance, of Environmental Affairs also, to solve problems collectively. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, our role as a department, insofar as the community work program is concerned, it's very limited. You are aware that the community work program is a national program, and the role of province and our department is primarily to support the implementation of the program, and which amongst other include minister's office are sometimes inundated with queries, complaints, people not receiving their salary on time, co-staff, etc. So in other words, we do most of the time unblocking of bottlenecks, but also ensuring that the local reference committees are fully functional. We do site visits. We do verification whether the people that's supposed to be implementing useful work on the sites are on site. But primarily, Chair, national, they're the custodians of CWP, and our role is limited to those 4 responsibilities that I shared with you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Member Dagmo. Colleagues, is there any questions? Some more questions from your side? Member Dagmo, is there something that you want to say?
Chair, thank you very much. I have been following the discussions and the responses that members have asked and the officials have responded. But if you could just provide guidance, my understanding at the beginning of the meeting was that you indicated we're dealing with A, B, and D together. Is that your understanding?
That's correct.
So it's possible to ask in terms of all of those particular sections A, B, and D.
That is correct.
Okay. No, thank you. My issue relates to the year under review, and I'm not sure whether MEC or the HOD could comment on specific examples or give information as to where this department, who has an oversight function, has actually called for investigations, and if so, in which municipalities across the whole province where the MEC, using the powers in the legislation, has actually called for investigations. And obviously the question relates to the period under review. Could we just get a sense of which municipalities were investigated and which provisions of the legislation were used in regard to those investigations and where those cases are at the moment? Going to continue. Okay. And then the MEC and some of the officials have also referred to the challenge of revenue. And I think obviously the energy issue is one of those, because the more renewable energy suppliers are provided, so is there the decreasing revenue from municipalities who obviously rely on their sales of electricity to, supplement the budgets. Now, one of the other issues in regard to revenue, which I think falls part of the institutional program and performance information, relates to the issue of rates. And I just wanted to ask whether the department has a specific project to investigate whether municipalities are actually maximizing the potential revenue when it comes to rates, particularly this phenomena of so-called absentee landlords who have land in the municipality, are not utilizing the land, and whether there's any potential in the view of the department that municipalities could be generating more revenue from, in particular, absentee landlords. And then the other issue would be on the water question. If the department could provide us with information about which municipalities, in terms of the year under review, were not able to provide quality of water consistently during the year. We know about issues currently in Matsikama, but there have also been other reports of the quality of water. So in the view of the department and the MEC, which are the hotspot areas in regard to the actual challenges of providing basically clean water. Is this something just limited to Matsikama, or which other municipalities are actually battling with this challenge of actually providing municipalities with clean water? And then I'm not sure if it's been dealt with before, Chair, but on page 38, there was this question of the deviation over 1,000 opportunities that were not taken up in regard to the CWP program. I'm not sure if that question has been responded to, but can there be a specific response, as it would appear, or if one reads this, that one would come to an understanding that the department could not actually find these young people to replace those who took up seasonal opportunities, which was the explanation by the department. So, Chair, those are my questions for now. I'm not sure, are you actually moving towards a conclusion now, or would this be the last opportunity to actually ask questions under these three sections?
I think I'll give you an opportunity because you've been following the meeting, and we appreciate that you were able to join us. And we are about to go to our last section, but hence I'm affording you an opportunity. But if I can also give you a second round, and then I'll just give the department an opportunity to respond.
No, thanks for that allowance. If possible, I would like to ask a second round, because I think I've already asked about 5 questions. Thank you. Thanks for that, Chair. And once again, apologies for joining late.
Department, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions from the members. So, Member Dugmore. So, I'm going to ask just Gary just to reflect on the specific investigations, sort of on the period under review as well as where they are. If you can reflect on that, we will reflect just on what we are doing in relation to the energy. There has been a decline in the revenue, working with the Provincial Treasury as a result of the energy sales, and we can reflect on that. I'm also going to ask you to just reflect on what we're doing about the rates. And I think the Minister is passionate about what we are doing about the rates, our annual assessments to compare the rates in municipalities, and where, in our view, some of the rates are high. And we can also just elaborate on the revenue enhancement program that has been developed and implemented in some municipalities, and how that has contributed to the increase in rates, in particular, in terms of that program that has been identified. I think we all respond. Marius and Ida on the water. We can also add just on the water challenges, and I'm going to ask Craig just maybe to report on the CWP, the fact that there has been a deviation. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for the question. Just in relation to investigations, in terms of Section 106 of the Municipal Systems Act, the Provincial Minister designated investigators to conduct certain investigations at some of the municipalities. During the period under review, there were 2 ongoing investigations, one being at Kalaland Municipality, with the investigation report being finalised and the report being issued to the municipality in December of 2022. There was also an ongoing investigation at Beaufort West Municipality. That investigation is still ongoing. There was also an investigation being conducted at Matsikama Municipality, with 5 reports being issued, and those reports were issued in June of this year. And then there were in terms of ongoing now, there's a further investigation that's being conducted in relation to Matsikama municipality. That investigation was initiated this year, and then a further investigation also at Central Karoo District Municipality. Thank you.
Yera, just hold, please.
I noticed that the official, I apologize for not knowing his name, did not mention Neisner. I was under the impression that in the year under review, there was an initiation of an investigation into Neisner, or is that incorrect? Was that more questions around appointments, or was it not a formal investigation into the municipality?
Yeah, thank you very much. There is an ongoing investigation currently in relation to Neisner municipality, but it's not under Section 106. That investigation is being conducted in accordance with the Code of Conduct for Councillors. So the provincial minister has initiated an investigation in terms of the Code of Conduct for Councillors to investigate the conduct there. That investigation is also ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Member. Yes, I'll answer two questions just around the rates. So property rates, we actually falls within two departments. So my minister has got a very specific responsibility around the general valuation role and also the appeals board, which we monitor on a very closely annual basis. Also then the publication of the Section 12 notices before the financial year starts, and that's just the new tariff structure. So we are just again now, if I may, Honourable Chairperson, was just received accolades from COPTA again. We were the first and only province to be able to complete all of those before the start of the new financial year. I think that's just important to say. We are working very closely then for leg B, or for the second leg, with our colleagues in Provincial Treasury that looks at the actual finances or the rates that is then attached to that property. So the two departments work closely together. What we've done in the last few years for our minister, Honourable Chairperson, is to do a comparison year on year, municipality by municipality, for the rates of specific properties, agriculture, business, as well as private, so that we can track how the rates go up and down on an annual basis. What we've also started doing now, Honourable Chairperson, Member, is we are working with Treasury also to look at the amounts assigned for services, that would be water, sewer, electricity, so that we can also track that on a year-on-year basis. We want to be able to see how the movements take place. Now, just to come a little bit closer to the question that was asked by the member and also HOD, what we find when we do our GVs is that there are a number of properties that are not necessarily either going through the general valuation system or then ending up in the financial system, for which then actually you need to receive an account. And for those, we have done excellent work in a number of municipalities called revenue enhancement projects. And that is literally data cleansing. It's making sure that every possible property lands in on the GV and then pulls through the financial system. And then the owner needs to pay an account. And so that loop needs to be cleaned up. And a number of municipalities have seen great success in that. And once again, we work together with the Provincial Treasury on that to make sure that everybody that needs to pay does indeed pay. Just in terms of the water, the quality of water, one of our very close partners, honourable members, is the Department of Water Affairs. We work with them almost on a daily basis. They bring out a report on blue drop and green drop, and that would be the quality of water in our rivers and also the quality of effluent that gets discharged. And then we work together with them to bring action plans in place to assist those municipalities that are experiencing challenges and where the levels are not what they should be. Indeed, Matsikama is a municipality that was brought to our attention, and we have, over the last number of weeks, provided extensive support to Matsikama through our own engineers spending time there, as well as action plans, giving additional funding to assist Matsikama to correct some of those challenges. Additionally, and I think it's worth to mention, is Kanaland. They were the second one that was brought to our attention. The department immediately made funding available notwithstanding that we sent an engineer that physically spent 3 months in the municipality that now work for them, also gave them funding for a small device in which they are now able to test their water on a daily basis themselves, to be able to check on an ongoing basis. So those are some of the immediate responses that we've done, honourable members, and we continue to doing so as these challenges are highlighted to us. We work together also with the water. Thanks, HOD.
Perhaps add to some of that. Okay, CWP.
Thank you. Chair, as previously indicated, the Community Work Program is a national program, and the number of work opportunities for the province as reflected here was determined by national. Why the underperformance is that the Community Work Program, it entails community members working 8 days a month, and they get paid 120 Rand per day. So when better opportunities come up, they tend to exit the program because it's more regular work. They work every day, they earn a better wage, and that usually brings down our total in terms of full compliance with the national allocation. It's predominantly seasonal work. So they exit the program, and then that brings the numbers down. Thanks, Chair.
Chairperson, just to add, so the revenue as at the end of the financial year of municipalities in terms of the ROM has actually decreased. The aggregate revenue generated from the sale of electricity by municipalities in the Western Cape was reported as 24.2 billion. That is 94.8% of the budgeted amount of 25.57 billion. So this translates into an underperformance of 1.33 billion, which is 5.2%. So, I mean, for the year under review, but until the 3rd of June, given its fact that it's the end of the financial year, there has been a decrease in electricity sales and so on. So just in relation to water, we do biannual assessments, just look at where are the risks in relation to water, given the fact that we drive and it's the water resilience in the province, but also given its transversal risk. And so we've also done the 15-year drought and integrated drought and resource plan. And based on the findings and the recommendations of those plans and assessments, we identify certain municipalities. So Matikama has been identified, Kanaland has been identified, Laingsburg, Beaufort West, and so on. And we are supporting those municipalities. In conversations with the municipal manager in Matikama, they've identified that the recent water challenges were also related to sabotage, and they've gone and opened 2 cases at the police station in Matikama. So as part of the monitoring and support, we do that also together with the municipality in Matikama. Thanks.
Would you mind if I just got some little bit of clarity just from the responses? To the HOD, so in effect, what you are saying is that in terms of the loss of revenue around sale of electricity, that one could estimate it to be 1.3 billion. Okay, sure. That's a big figure. And then, you know, in the responses to those municipalities which are having water challenges, I mean, what I heard from the responses is Matsikama, Kanaland, Laingsburg, Beaufort West. Can I just ask, are there any other municipalities that are dealing with it? I'm talking about quality. I'm not talking about availability or a drought or something. I'm just talking about the ability of the municipality to provide clean, safe drinking water. Are those the only municipalities that have a problem in the whole province?
The clarification.
The water quality.
It's a blue job status, actually.
Honourable Member, we
But
have the detail that we get from Water Affairs. So it's not per municipality in the whole area. So we will, for instance, know that it's specific section, a specific river inside a specific municipality. So we have all of that detail that's published by Water Affairs. We know Canaland, for reasons that we understand, is a broader problem. So we have all of that detail and we can make it available. It's not like in Beaufort West, for instance, that there's a broad, big problem. It is isolated to specific areas, and we have that detail, Chair, that we can make available.
Then could I just ask my last questions then on, I believe we finishing up B now. Okay. Yes, no, when I was listening to the engagement, I noted the MEC's concerns around the issue of coalitions and also the HOD. And I think, I know I asked this question at the last annual report. I mean, obviously there's a lot of discussion going on at the moment in the country about, this problem of instability. I'm not sure what the HOD or the MEC's words were, but described it as, it's not around policy. It's more just coalitions around positions, And, my understanding of the legislation nationally is that a province is able to determine the model which applies. And we know that, for instance, a province like KwaZulu-Natal has gone for, and I hope I have the terminology right, broadly a mayoral committee, which on which members, councillors are represented based on the proportional support of their parties. Whereas in this province and a number of other provinces, we have the executive mayor. Now, I know there would be different arguments for and against, and I know that obviously the political parties have views on this. But could I just ask the MEC or the HOD, in terms of the current situation in our province, where all of us have a sense of, I think the word was king-making. I mean, and I know it's probably a policy issue, not really for the department, but so I'll just ask the question again, does the, and I hope the MEC doesn't think this is unfair, but does the MEC's political party have a view on this matter? And then has there been any research done by this department as to whether the other model, let's call it the mayoral committee model, might be better suited to our province, or in fact any other model? I mean, I know that Salga has issued that position paper on the whole issue of coalitions. But if this is the problem, or one of the problems, the kingmaker issue, and let's call it the unfair representation of parties who don't actually, get much support from the voters, but yet are, in essence, kingmakers. I mean, what is does the MEC or the department have any ideas about how this issue could be solved, even if it involves kind of changes to national legislation and so on? And if, I mean, it would be interesting to hear the MEC's view on his own party, but obviously he's not obliged to answer that. But I'm just trying to, if this is the problem, how do we deal with it? I'm just trying to ask a practical question.
Remember, Dagmar, I'm glad that you've raised that. And Minister, you're not obliged to give us your political opinions or your party's opinions. And we just stick to the facts as an executive within the province responsible for local authorities. I think that's what's important. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Chairperson, I think that all the bigger political parties, I hope that they all will grapple with this and debate it internally and discuss on how do we find the best model to serve the people. I think all the big parties must be involved in that kind of discussion. And there's no clear answers currently from where I sit. I think there's a lot of personal opinions, etc. We have visited KZN to look at the impacts and the mayoral committee system versus the executive committee system. The problems at the end of the day currently from where I sit is the same. Still, they break the quorums, they don't show up for meetings, and you can see it within the government at the end of the day. we don't get to people focusing on service delivery, etc. I think it's an open, ongoing debate, and to try and find a more stable political model, because that will then stabilize the administration. And I think it's important that we spend more time on debating what kind of model will suit us the best. I also think that part of that conversation must be this whole thing of by-elections. Can we, in our current state of economy as well as instability, afford all these by-elections, that people actually use by-elections to shift power in municipalities, and we ending up chasing our own tails at the end of the day, where I think we need to have a system where you get somebody to govern for 5 years and somebody to be in opposition, and collectively playing both their roles, we need to serve the public better. That's the kind of system that we must debate and think about, but also as we not only think in coalitions, but also this whole by-election system. Thank you, Chair. And on the water,
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you for the questions from Honourable Dagmo. So just in relation to, so we've got a mayoral system. Many of the other provinces, including KwaZulu-Natal's got a committee, or the executive committee system. So we've gone and engaged KwaZulu-Natal, particularly on their system, and get an understanding how it works. Their responses to us when we sort of done research on it, you sit with the same problems, because in the committee system, although you've got proportional representation, when that committee convenes and certain councillors don't want an item to carry to council, they just are not present. They just stay away from that thing and so on. So you struggle actually to get stuff considered and recommended to council, and also sort of as a challenge for the functioning of council and so on. So we've done, had a couple of engagements with KwaZulu-Natal in our understanding on it. And I think just on a national level, in the MINMEC and the technical MINMECs, there are continuous discussions on the benefits and the challenges in relation to the executive committee system, but also the mayoral committee system and so on. But there hasn't been a final decision on how national government is going to proceed with it. I think amongst ourselves in the province, we had these discussions and determined whether we should actually make recommendations on the committee system, but obviously the findings are not in line with some of the recommendations, and we had discussions also with the minister on the committee system and both the pros and the cons of that. Is another question?
Towards the end of part B, I would just like to ask 1 or 2 questions related to transfer payments. And I think this will be my last one.
Yeah.
Or is there another question behind?
No, I think you're the only one. I'll give you those 2 opportunities.
Yeah.
When you are done, then we'll go to the last
D.
session, which is D.
Yeah.
And then thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of from 52 down to 59. I think I just wanted to check that I presume in regard to the CDW operational support grants. I don't know if that was responded to earlier, but almost alongside every amount transferred, we have a reason that the municipality has until the 30th of June to spend the funds. So is it possible that the department can just tell us, because I see that Langeberg, for instance, spent all of its money, but literally most of the others, didn't. I think that was the only one that actually managed to, in terms of that. And then I also just noticed that, in terms of the Tusong Center grants, Cederberg and Oudtshoorn had not spent at all, but like for Cederberg, it says that the funds will be spent by the 30th of June. Were they spent? Oatswin, simply that they've commenced and they will apply for rollover. So I'd just like to ask in those two cases as well, Cedarburg and Oatswin with the Tucson grant, what's actually going on there? And then, you know, I'm just also concerned even on this service delivery and capacity building grant, you know, most municipalities are in this whole issue of the SCM. Now, we are talking, this is a report about the year under review. So could we just get an explanation as to why is this happening? I mean, can a municipality only start a supply chain management process once the money is in their account? Or if they have an indication that they're getting the money, surely, you know, they could start that process earlier, because we just end up with, you know, all these rollovers. And then obviously in the water resilience grant, I see once again, you know, although 3 million was allocated to Cedarburg, again, it's a question of having to apply for rollover. And then this load shedding relief grant. I mean, there, as I see it, every municipality, if I'm correct, except actually Bergrivier, that actually spent 2 million of the 3.6, and then I think there was one more that spent something, Matsikama. You know, everyone else. Now, there's all this explanation, the money was only transferred towards the end of March. Is there any policy that if a municipality doesn't spend these transfers, I mean, how many times would they be allowed to roll over? And just maybe at a broad level, what does the department think is contributing to this? Like a very simple question: why were the funds only transferred at the end of March 2023, which is literally, as I see it, you know, for municipalities, they have June, July. So is there any realistic, why is the funds only transferred at that time? And and then the question is, if Swartland, for instance, knows that it's getting 10 million, but the funds were only transferred at the end of March, is there no way that on the basis of that commitment, they can proceed with procurement or other plans? I just think that is a serious concern at the moment. Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Jody. Lusego?
Thank you. Maybe to ask a question the same question, but in a different form, so that I can have an understanding. Unlike the emergency municipal load shedding relief grant allocation, it's that you understand maybe the transfer, it will be the municipality hasn't spent by the time that you do the annual report, because it's an emergency, the transfer might be late. I want to find out from the CDW operational support grant. I tend to believe that you allocated it on the budgets. Now, if it's unspent, and I saw on the last financial year also, there are municipalities that didn't spend all their allocated grant. Now, if you allocate the money to the CDW now, and it's unspent like that, it's your baseline is based on what? If you allocate and they are not going to spend by the time you anticipate them to have spent, or is that money already committed to something that they are going to spend it on whatever allocation that was based, or their business plans? Because I take it that business plan indicated how much is needed for you to give them the grant. But if they have unspent, what service was shortchanged for this not to be spent within that grant? I think that's all for me, Chair.
Yeah, before you answer, let me also go into that one. In terms of this particular operational grant of CWs, at the local municipality level, where does that grant go to? And how do you make sure that the grant that you allocate for operational is used for that particular purpose? And how do you monitor? Would you be able to give us a hypnosis in terms of how municipalities spend this particular grant? Because I remember in a previous lifetime, I remember a municipality bought cars for that. We're using that particular grant with the branding of that particular municipality. And in some instances, they would use the same grant for sanitary towels, and it would be run from the office of a politician. And CWs are just asked to do the handover. So those are kind of issues that we are confronted with on the ground. So my question is how do we make sure that when we send, we disperse a particular grant for a particular purpose, that it usually fulfills that particular purpose, and then we don't allow, these smaller shenanigans to, to happen within our municipalities. Thank you very much. Give over to the HOD.
Sorry.
Perhaps just CDWs and then just the some grants. Yeah, and then we will ask about the water, and then there's again questions about just the CPW grant, and then a load shedding grant and the water resilience grant, 3 million of CDW. Can we deal with?
Thank you, HOD. Thank you, Chairperson. With your permission, there's overlapping questions, and I'll try and cover all the aspects or facets of the questions. Firstly, as the terminology I think is instructive, it's an operational support grant. And in the main, I think this department gets great value from municipalities in the sense that the grant assists what I would refer to as the hosting cost. In other words, the Department of Local Government doesn't provide a physical office from the Department of Local Government. So in that sense, it's really a value add, and it's also testimony to an awesome partnership because of the mutual value derived. So that's on the one side. On the other side, it is also to what I would call small projects to just instill confidence in terms of what CWs are doing. So this is the only province in the country that has this model where we actually make a contribution to the municipality in terms of what I said, the hosting cost. Remember, Seku, it's roughly 18,000 Rand per CDW for those purposes as indicated. And I think when I retire, I must write a book about how we have expanded this value. If you think about the excessive cost in terms of renting buildings, etc. Yeah. And we have just, if you go back into the years, this amount has actually stayed consistently the same. So the last 3 years. So Chairperson, you've referred to the bottom of CAR, that's many moons ago, Chairperson, and we've got a framework conditions. So in terms of the current set of framework conditions, the buying of capital items is no more permitted. In those municipalities, we bought those cars, we are still using some of those vehicles to this day, but it's a shared facility. Then about, also linked to, I think Member Maseko's question is about our business plans attached to it. Monitoring occurs at various levels. Firstly, part of the in-year monitoring, but also we've got dedicated officials meetings. So we sit with those officials, etc. Each municipality, this is not a one size fits all. As you know, there are certain municipalities which is really, really constrained in terms of the number of people working for them. So we have this term, the municipal dedicated official. The framework conditions directs the spending out of that. The major underlying problem that we have in terms of the initial question that has been raised in terms of the expenditure is that the municipal and the provincial financial years doesn't it's different financial years. Okay, so that is, we do in terms of our year have expenditure as at 31st of March. Okay, and then this as reflected here. So the municipality has another 3 months to spend the money. We have made great strides in ensuring that everyone gets 100% at the end of June, 30 June, at the end of the financial year. So, and you can see that through the applications for rollover, etc. Secondly, those rules also allow, if you have not spent the money, you must return it, and municipality are returning that. But we really have made great stride in terms of that. Chairperson, I hope I have sanitary towels and etc. It's an example. So in the city of Cape Town, which is a big municipality, we transfer around R1 million. Where we have CDWs, they've identified projects. There's a project plan attached to that. We have a very active member of the mayoral committee who is responsible for this, the oversight in the city of Cape Town. And I can really assure Chairperson and the members that the project originates with the CDW. Okay, so because the MACO member is very active, that is what you are seeing. But I just want to assure everyone that it originates from the CDW. So it's not like, and it's the term that has been used, and I know I personally have really drive the process to change it started off as a sanitary towels thing, but it's now women's dignity, girl dignity, because some of our learners, female learners, they are distracted because they can't afford the necessary sanitary wear, etc. But it's a broader issue in terms of just restoring dignity in our communities, etc. I will stop there. Thanks.
Yeah, before just on that one, just on the project itself, remember, because I become very much disturbed when CWs are involved, and then the caption will say, the office of the speaker has distributed so many sanitary towels. You understand? So I don't want to make my own assumptions, but those are instances that are currently happening on the ground. And I just want to sensitize you on such things so that you must be aware. Thank you very much. Maseko?
Thank you very much. Just in the response to get the clarity, because when we get a book like this, the interpretation of what you're explaining to me versus another person when they read here, it becomes something else. And I do understand the financials being different, the local government and the province. But you do have a municipality like Langeberg that have spent 100% expenditure from the business plan perspective of it. And then you do have a municipality like Overstrand that it still had to spend about 54 out of 75. But all this allocation came with a business plan of what's going to happen, responsibility lying with the CDW. So you allocate having a wish list that is going to happen and with a commitment that that is going to happen. So I understand what you are saying, but my interpretation, if I look at it now, is whatever that needed to happen is only a difference between the province and local government, that it's about a quarter. But when you look at the figures, they don't talk to a quarter remaining in some of the municipalities. It might be the less money, but the heading says that there is underperformance of a sort. That we have to, I will ask the question of saying that now, if you engage with the municipalities from the CDW side, why not ask the questions to say why that is not happening, why this is happening. And when you go back for the new financial year to go and do the allocation to say that there are challenges on spending on this, how do we shift the goalpost to make sure that it talks to delivery that we get the hundreds? I mean, the CDW is one program that you expect the 100% because it's a demand-driven program. Thank you, Chair.
But before you go on the issue of expenditure, if colleagues allow me, I would just want to try to assist. And also why I'm doing this is because based on the response that we got from Mr. Markhaman, but would it be possible maybe that because some of the issues you're saying that they will be spent by the end of June 2023, but now we are in October. So I think what is outstanding here is the reports from the different municipalities to see whether they were able to keep to that commitment. So that I think we should actually, get, an update because their financial year has already passed. They are in a new financial year. So I think if we can get that report, it would eliminate a lot of questions, in terms of these particular grants. I think that would be very proactive, colleagues.
We can provide that report, Chairperson. Do you want to add or not? Can we do something?
It's fine, Monet.
Okay.
Chair, good morning, and Member Dagmore and all other members. Just on the two municipalities that you raised. Yes, Cederberg at the time when the report was written, end of our financial year, didn't spend their money, but I can confirm that they've spent all their money by the end of their financial year, meaning end of June. That's why they also didn't apply for a rollover. And maybe in both cases, we've worked with the two municipalities to utilize existing municipal buildings that we've now transformed into satellite Tusong centers. So the Cederberg one was for Lambert's Bay, and this was really just to fix some of the windows and do some painting and make it a little bit more habitable. The Oudtshoorn one was for Duiselsdorp. So as we don't have the financial muscle anymore to build big centers, we are trying to refurbish and build smaller satellites, not build, I think, revamp. So Cederberg, I can comfortably say they've spent their money by end of their financial year. In Oudtshoorn, there was some delays, and it was not only the municipality and their supply chain processes, there was also delays in terms of the agreements, because what we're trying to do with that center, maybe just to get a little bit of context, is to move the e-center, which is currently it's a very small building in a church, also into the center. So we have more government services in one place. So that arrangement between the e-center and the municipality and the delays with the first response on the advert wasn't good and they had to re-advertise. They are all on track. They applied for rollover, which we actually approved. And we are monitoring that through site visits and their quarterly reports. We are positive that they will spend the money as per the TPA, the transfer payment agreement, and also within the timeframes permitted. Again, this was also for revamping of the Duiselsdorp satellite center, Member Dagmore.
Richard, if I may, through you, the Chair, just perhaps the context to answer some of the questions. Generally, we transfer the funding on the CDW program between October and December, and that's actually most of the grants, and it's owing to the contracting process that must take place. So on an annual basis, we have to ensure that a municipality, based on what is allocated, they submit to us a transfer payment agreement together with the business plan and associated documents. That document must then come through and be vetted by legal services before we can actually start the transfer. So that's where the first part of the delay is at. And that is why you end up having transfers between October and December. And then the municipalities can then spend from that time moving forward. So that's the context. The second part of it, I think if we look at the CDW program, in some instances, Heinrich has spoken to it. The funding goes towards not, when we say operational costs, a portion of it goes towards, for instance, hosting the CDW in terms of the venue itself. And we can never afford the cost of that at all. And that's why we do that. And to answer the question that came from the chairperson in this context, the funding does not go specifically, the CFO of a municipality must then sign off in terms of the expenditure that has taken place. But in some instances, we do find, and Heinrich and team, they are increasingly ensuring that, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, they sit with a dedicated official to ensure that the expenditure takes place. But sometimes there are some delays in terms of the funding is spent, but it's actually apportioning that particular funding to the line item itself. And that sometimes does cause some delays. So that's the context of this. If I look at the CDW funding, we've transferred to approximately 24, 25 municipalities. And about 15 of those municipalities have already spent their funding. If we look at the rollover applications that the department has received, it's 9 rollover applications. And then there's one municipality that just has to pay back 2,500. So if you look at that already, it gives you an indication that by the end of the municipal financial year, the funds were spent in over a third of the municipalities. But as HOD has indicated, the actual expenditure can then be provided. The report on all the expenditure can be provided. But that already gives an indication that the funding has been spent. And then the last question on how often municipalities can roll over. Provincial Treasurer sends out a circular immediately during the period of the rollover, which then unpacks the process for municipalities to apply for a rollover. The recent circular is quite clear, and Treasury has also taken municipalities through that circular and departments. You can only apply as a municipality for a rollover once. So they cannot approve a rollover on top of a rollover already. So if a municipality then has not spent those funding, whether it's because they have not apportioned it to the various costs or they haven't spent it at all, then they have to pay it back to the department.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me just reflect on the load shedding grant, and I'll ask Ira and Marius just to reflect on the balance. So, Honourable Chairperson, the load shedding grant was plus minus 89 million. And the department and the minister have responded to that need of municipalities. I think we were inundated during November and December around challenges about water, particularly in relation to the water treatment works as well as the wastewater treatment works in municipalities. Obviously, during that time, you'll find an influx of visitors to those areas, and there's a greater demand on the capacity of these treatment works. And so, I mean, by our own capacity, we managed to have generators on standby from other municipalities, from the National Department of Water and Sanitation, and rotate those generators to some of the municipalities with the biggest need. But in response to that, the minister has approached Minister Winger, the Minister of Finance in the province, for 89 million to have that release in terms of Section 25 of the PFMA from the Provincial Revenue Reserve Fund. And that was to respond as an emergency response to the challenges in relation to the impact of load shedding on the water treatment works and the wastewater treatment works. So that was done in January, Chairperson. We've done then subsequent work with municipalities, identifying the specs, identifying the conditions of the transfers and so on, the business plans. And so based on the final approval, we asked Minister Winger then to transfer the funding to municipalities. So that was in terms of Sections 25, and it was not even covered in the main budget or in the adjustment budget process. And the money was then transferred to municipalities. Some of the generators you could actually buy from the south. The majority of the generators were based on spec, and they had to be obviously ordered, manufactured to the spec, and then obviously delivered, but also installed. I mean, some of the generators are so big that require a concrete plinth to put on that. So that was a process in relation to the load shedding grant. And based on that allocation, the Cabinet does require that on a monthly basis we provide regular reports on the spending of that grant to Cabinet, where it has been. Most of the municipalities have spent the money. Some have applied for rollover based on the fact that they have committed, they have ordered the stuff and so on, but they kept it in abeyance until such time that there was approval for the rollovers. Ida Marcus.
Okay, Judy. Chairperson, members, just to connect with my HOD, I can confirm that the expenditure for the generators was 58%. As at the end of September, that equals roughly to almost 52 million rand of the total amount, and that is reported to Cabinet on a monthly basis. Just a few other comments, Chair, if I may, just to connect with my colleague. And that is just to indicate that for all the grants, we have established the grant committee. The grant committee consists out of all 3 chief directorates, and every project that asks for funding or represents a municipality are assigned a project manager, and that project manager takes ownership and responsibility for that project in our committee, but also back in the municipality. So any communication happens between the 2 project managers, notwithstanding the responsibility between the 2 accounting officers. That helps us to make sure that the project managers keeps their hands on the projects, they visit the projects, they're in contact with local project managers, and they also make sure that we receive quarterly reports and that we are ready for the audit processes. What we then do is after we've transferred the funding, the timing becomes awkward because they need to stop spending, stop their processes in July, end of June, and then wait for the rollover processes, which we only concluded last week. So that means that there are then a chunk of 2-3 months where they need to stand still and wait for the rollover to be approved. So just to add a little bit on that, so many of them have started but then stopped because they need to obviously have in writing from the Treasury, and the letters are only going out, it went out end of last week, then they can start again. So I think that is just important to say. What we do have, honourable members, is we track the progress on a monthly basis, notwithstanding our quarterly reports, and we can see exactly which projects are moving and which not. We have also the details. Also, specifically because there is a one person taking ownership, we can troubleshoot quicker. If there is a challenge, then the project managers can deal with it. And the picture, obviously, as we are sitting here today, looks completely different to what is in the annual report, as I think that was explained before. Just in terms of Cederburg specifically, the funding that was allocated was for 2 specific projects, and I think it's important that we just raise that. It's for Lambert's Bay. We had extreme legal challenges last year, specifically around boreholes that were situated on a farm, and we had difficulty having access to the boreholes. So we realized that we had to look for a secondary source of water with them, and that amount specifically was allocated to the municipality to help with that. 2 projects. The first one is to upgrade the holding weir. That's the holding area or the reservoir in Lambert's Bay, and the second one is to drill new boreholes. So we are advised that they are literally just waiting for the rollover process to be completed, and then they will run with the process. So we keep a very close hand on it, and reports go to the HOD on a quarterly basis.
Colleagues, thank you very much for those round of answers. We have dealt with A and B, and I appreciate your indulgence for the last 2.5 hours. And tea has been provided for you, and I see some of our colleagues has been walking up and down. So I think we have different levels of, yeah, Oscar, Anderson, Oscar, Nioni. So that I'm on the safe space, I would allow to just take a break for 15 minutes, and we'll be back at 11:15, and then we will deal with our last part, which is D. Yeah, in the lounge, tea has been prepared. Thank you very much, colleagues. See you at 11:15.
or 34. So I'm just concerned at those terminations. I think the department, in my view, more than others, is trying to make the management more representative of the people of our province. But when you look at those terminations in those categories, that is a concern. And then if you look at then on page 98, the filling of SMS posts, you would see there that at salary level 13, table 373 at the bottom of 98, you've advertised that there were adverts for 3 salary level 13 positions that were advertised within 6 months. But then if you look at the vacancies per level filled in 6 months, there's nothing. And then the number of vacancies not filled, but filled in 12 months, there's also nothing. So I think that's a very serious situation for a department that it isn't very big. And, you know, there's been a failure to actually fill those SMS posts as at the 31st of March. And then on page 100, Chair, at the bottom there, 3.3, there's a whole issue there of performance rewards by race, gender, and disability. And then there's over the page, and it says none. And then performance was rewards by salary band. That's the cash bonus. And then senior management, none. And then critical occupation, also none. Now, I'm not sure, but it seems to me that the question that must be asked, is there not any link between the number of terminations and the fact that basically in the year under review, there's been no performance rewards? I mean, is it because people are leaving because there are no performance rewards and they basically don't feel an incentive to stay? So what I'm basically asking, why were there those quite high level, to me, terminations? And is there a link between the fact that there have been no performance rewards at all, which concerns me? And then if you go onto the labor relations issue on page on page 109, 3.12. You would see that under precautionary suspension, there's been one precautionary suspension. All I want to know there is by when do we think that issue will be finalized? And then the last set of questions relates to consultants. You know, we talked about water, Chairperson, during the first sections. And
Sorry,
then
remember, Dagmo, you were doing so well in terms of the numbers of the pages.
The pages.
Yeah, can you just...
114. Okay. I'm now on 114. The issue of consultants. And at the bottom there, you will see GEOS, South Africa Hydrogeological Consulting Services. Now, remember, I asked the question about quality of water. And I think in the response that I got, there were particular municipalities that were mentioned: Matsikama, Kannaland, Beaufort West, Laingsburg, where there was a concern. But if you look at this payment on consultant, they also mention Witzenberg, Orgullis, Oudtshoorn, Cedarburg, Breda Valley, Hessequa, and Prince Albert, which now one would assume that the reason that these consultants are involved here to look at ongoing groundwater management has got something to do with the quality of water. So, and that cost almost R1 million, and there were 4 consultants involved. So when we utilize their services for groundwater management, does that relate to the issue of the quality of water in all of those municipalities? And then can I just ask, in terms of Zutari P2Y, the Integrated Drought and Water Resource Plan, 3 consultants used, is that report available? Maybe I've missed it somewhere, but if not, could that report also be made available to the committee? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Member Dugmore. Marie?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my first question through you to the department is page 86. This deals with annual turnover rates by salary band. I see that with highly skilled supervision and highly skilled production, so levels between levels 6 and 12, the turnover rate is fairly high, between 8.1 and 8.9%. Just wanted to get an understanding of what are the causes underlying the turnover rate. Then from there, Chair, page 88, I noted that the staff leaving the employ of the department, 41.2% were due to resignation. My question is whether exit interviews were conducted and what were the findings of the exit interview in terms of why people wanted to maybe leave or search for other opportunities. And I think related to that is just at the back of my mind, the culture change or the culture journey that we're going through, or the Western Cape government is going through, whether that has come up as a concern or, you know, whether there are any unaddressed issues within the culture change that people may need more information on. Then page 92, that deals with total number of employees with disabilities. I'm actually really glad to see this in the annual report. I think it demonstrates a lot of caring. And I just wanted to ask what sort of support is provided to those who are differently abled and who work for the department. Then Chair, I think, let me leave it there. Thank you.
Member Marie? You know, can I get another chance? So if you got questions pertaining to D, you must just go all out. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chair, just the last one then. Just on page 109, grievances lodged. If I want to commend the department again on resolving all 6 of these grievances. If it's just possible to get a bit of an understanding what the grievances relate to and how they were escalated. Was it through the labor unions, or was it possibly like directed at the minister directly? How is that, firstly, how did it come about? And secondly, what was the nature of these grievances? Thank you. Possibly also how they were resolved.
Thank you very much. Member Maseko?
Thank you very much. I don't have a lot of questions, just one. I just want to find out, I mean, in the disaster, there is a trauma in counseling, I think, after that is needed from the department side. And I know that, Premier, there is a transversal agreement for counseling for the wellness and of the employees. So when coming to the department, since you deal with the disasters, there is and I saw that you do have the agreement with the, I don't know which page, I think it's on page 106. Yeah, on page 106, where there is the Metropolitan Health. So what type, how do you, not what type, how do you go about in doing the counseling? Is that they do have the online for maybe the employees, if there is a need for counseling, that they can call that number? Is that also shared with the municipality, the volunteers that maybe you use when that there is a disaster, that they can access that? Or is just now you use it for the employees and those volunteers that maybe sometimes they go and help when there is a disaster, they don't have that? And if that's the case, what is the communication with the municipalities? Because I think municipalities are the ones that are championing the volunteers when coming to the disasters for working for the fire, for example, that they will have to have those to assist. Now, how do we make sure that there is services that we can help them when coming to, if there is a need from the volunteers? Chair, I think the members have covered me with the question then.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I've also, in terms of page 83, I will link it to 21. You'll find that there is two positions available for directors. It's one director IDP and one director disaster operations. And I'm also under the impression that the specific one, director IDP, was also vacant in 21-22. And I would just, share with us as the members, what challenges are you finding as a department to actually find a competent individual to fill that space, one, and secondly, how does the non-filling of these particular two positions affect affect you as a department in meeting your strategic goals, as a department? Those are the only two questions from my side. Thank you very much. Colleagues, it's over to you, Minister in the department.
Chairperson, just very broadly, the non-filling of any position, I think, put pressure on other personnel members. So it's important that we do fill, but also fill with the right people. I think the rumors out there always that public servants get this enormous salaries, etc., etc. It's a very general kind of statement out in public domain, which is not fair. I think we also struggle that the provincial salary scales of our personnel don't. It's not in par with municipalities. So we're going to lose people if we continue on this track. Your grade 4, 5, 6 municipalities, not even touching on the metro, it's far ahead of our salary scales. So I think it's maybe something that you will pick up in all departments, that we're going to lose personnel, and you normally lose your good personnel first. So it's a worrying aspect. On Honourable Dugmore's question, I will just touch on that one on page 109, the suspension. The suspension of the individual was recommended by CSC, the Department of the Premier. It lasted for 32 days. Then it was lifted after the conclusion of the investigation, and the independent investigation found that there was no merit in the accusation. So with that, I will then ask the HOD and the team to deal with the rest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, and thank you for the questions. So I'm going to deal with the questions. So Honourable Member Dagmar has alluded to page 93, and that reflects on the exit, those number of that exit the department. And those are 34 that exited the department. And just perhaps to give you a breakdown of that, that those that have exited the department, it's a combination of both of employees that left the department, and obviously on a permanent basis, but it also those that are left the department in relation to contracts that have expired. So of that total, of the 34, there was one official that passed on. There were 14 resignations of people that were permanent in the employment. 10 of those were, 10 of the 34 was contract positions. In other words, it's, in terms of the legislation, contracts are disallowed for a year. And after the termination, after the conclusion of the year, they then exit the system, but they are seen as exiting the recruitment and selection process and the department. There were 2 retirements. There was one actually that transferred to a statutory body, and 4 that transferred to the public service departments, other departments, and then 2 was actually in promotion. So, Chairperson, let me just reflect on those on contract. It is a concern for us because particularly on that level 9 to 12, 10, 11, 12, but also 9 to 10, because there are actually, it's critical posts. You've got engineers, you've got the GIS technologist, and you can only appoint them for a year. Then the contract expires. So we have now met with CSC on what kind of innovation we can actually bring into the system. What we've done now, Chairperson, is where we secure the funding by means of earmark funding. Over the 3 years, we have now agreed with, well, based on the innovation, ensure that we now advertise those posts over a 3-year period. So it implies that there's a temporary structure that the Department of the Premier has considered and approved. And there's actually job descriptions that have been developed for those. So given the fact that there's a temporary structure, you can now advertise those contract positions over a 3-year period. Many of those positions are actually engineers that need to come work for the department, in particular Marius' section. And engineers don't want to come work, leave a permanent employment and come work for a year. And also contribute to that is actually the salaries that we offer. The minister has alluded to it. And then for the permanent appointments, I can just make examples of it. So we are losing staff to municipalities and other organs of state. So I'm going to just give you a couple of examples. So Tobela, she was a deputy director by us, a African female. She actually got a position in the city of Cape Town at a much higher salary. And as an accounting officer department, I'm not able to negotiate with salaries or how do I retain the staff and so on. She has gone to the city of Cape Town. Rigotso, it's Dr. Rigotso. She has gone, she just qualified as a PhD and as a doctor, and she has gone to UCT to lecture at the UCT. Annika Clark also left the employ. She was a committee of this committee clerk of this committee. She has gone to the National Parliament to take up a position there. Also, the salary is significantly different. And so in some of the terminations, one official also, she had a choice whether she should resign or actually retire because she was that age, but she chose to resign given the financial benefits and obviously the accessibility to her funds immediately. So we know more or less why staff members, particularly the permanent staff members, are leaving. But some of them also don't go through the interview process, exit interview process to say these are the reasons. So on. At the moment, I mean, in the department, I can't retain. It's difficult to retain the people because I'm not enabled. There's no tools for me to say, is it salaries? Is it higher positions? And it's difficult at the moment to retain because municipalities are just are able to pay much higher salaries. And also you get some of the officials that do exit the province and go to other departments. But it is a concern because we would like to retain some of the skill and the competence and so on. But it's difficult given the circumstances that I've alluded to. Just in relation to page 98, 373. So the honorable member is correct. There's 3 vacant senior management posts. So the one is the IDP. It became vacant in 2021, director, senior manager. The one also became vacant, disaster operations, as Jackie Pandaram that went to the Department of Agriculture to take up a chief director's position there. And then, Chairperson, there's also 1-year contract post on a senior level, and that's for the JDMA. And people find it not enticing to come work for a year on that level. So we've also gone to the Department of the Premier, to CSC, to ask them to create a temporary structure for that so that we can advertise that position over a 3-year period. The department has now agreed to it. There is a job description, and we have now advertised that particular post for a 3-year period. So just in relation to the IDP post, it has been advertised now 4 times, 3 times. One of the 4 times is actually headhunted. So we advertised it, didn't get a suitable candidate and so on. We went on the headhunting process. We approached people in other departments. We approached people in municipalities. We approached candidates in other provinces, national department, and then subsequently was not able to fill that post. We've advertised it again, and there were 2 final candidates, and the decision was then not to fill that post, given some of the areas that require development. We've now advertised the post again. It closed now on the 9th of this month, and we're now in a shortlisting process for that particular post. Disaster operations, we are scheduled to have interviews in due course, Honorable Chair, next week, next month. Next month we will have that. And obviously the JDMA post has also closed, and we are also in the shortlisting process for the JDMA post. So those 3 positions are currently vacant. Honorable Chairperson, you can remember, we also want to take into account the equity around this. How do we balance it on the senior management level? So this is an ideal opportunity to do so. I have referred to that in previous sessions with the committee, and that is also where we are heading to consider whether we actually can have, by means of filling this post, also more female representativity on the senior management level. Honorable Douglas' question around the performance management on page 100. The cabinet has taken a decision not to pay any performance bonuses, and I think that has also been taken on a national level, where there's no performance bonuses paid. In other words, a remuneration for staff. Staff get a pay progression, in other words, a notch increase on an annual basis, but they do not qualify, or any of the Western Cape government staff do not qualify for any performance bonuses. They qualify for the notch progression. Obviously, it implies that there must be maximum 24 months on that level. So when they come into the middle of that, it is actually longer. And those that are on the maximum scale of that particular post also do not qualify for a notch increment. And obviously, when there's poor performance, you don't get notch increments. So it's the Western Cape government has developed a non-remunerative policy as to how do you incentivize staff, given the fact that they can't remunerate them by means of financial means. But this is a stance that the Western Cape government has taken, but also it's a direction from the national government on the payment of performance bonuses. Okay. The quality of the water. I'm going to just leave that to Ian Marius, just around the consultants, Matsikama and Cederberg, and also the work done around the geohydrologist, why we appointed them, the work that they're doing in municipalities to ensure that the abstraction levels are accurate, that there's no over-abstraction, and there's an entire management of the underground water system in municipalities. And I think, Honourable Chairperson, with your acquiescence, we have made a presentation on the 15-year drought and response plan, but we can make the presentation available, and we can also make the report available to the Standing Committee if you so wish. So just on page 86, in terms of Honourable Members Mari's question, We provided some of the reasons for the exits. There's a difference between those that are on contract. I said 10, and then obviously 14 have exited the system that were permanent. Some have retired, and some have taken promotional posts somewhere else in the province. So also in the department, there are discussions underway around just the culture journey. We had discussions with both Letitia and with Johan Nel on it. It has been discussed at the senior management meeting. And we've recognized the importance of this culture journey. And we are in the process of just developing a program that we can implement a culture journey within the organization going forward. And that is part of the management agenda on a regular basis. So just in terms of the disabilities, Honorable Chairperson, we've actually increased year on year. The requirement is 2%. We had 3.8% of our staff members that are disabled. And obviously in working with the staff, we take cognizance and where so required, if there's a requirement from these officials, we do provide them with support. But my observation is some of those that are disabled are also able to cope. But in our engagements with them, we are mindful that some of them are disabled. Just in terms of the grievances lodged, Honorable Chairperson, so I think if I can recall, there were about 6. If I can understand, I just want to get the detail. So there were 6. All 6 have been resolved in the period under review. So I can just mention them briefly. As conduct of supervisor and management. Those were 3 cases, and it's on a salary level 7, 8, and salary level 8, 7, 8, and 13. And then there was a grievance about promotion, and then performance management on level 6 and promotion on level 9. All those grievances that have been lodged in the year under review have been resolved during the period under review. Chairperson, disaster management, Honorable Chairperson, if you look, I'm going to ask Colin maybe specifically to deal with that, just in relation to the additional work that it does. But in terms of the interventions, so there is counseling, trauma, debriefing, and awareness. In terms of the service level agreement that we have for the Department of the Premier, there's managerial consultations, there's psychosocial development, interventions, information, communication and education, coaching, group therapy, and sometimes that's required for our colleagues in disaster management. And then we also talk about regional accommodation. So there are interventions, but I think after a disaster, Colin normally has a debriefing, and perhaps he can talk to those. So, Chairperson, just in relation to some of the challenges, I think the ID post and Nazuko will agree that it's so crucial because it deals with both horizontal and vertical, not only planning, but also collaboration and the ability to build networks and relationships, but taking into account what the municipalities require in relation to the IDPs, what kind of advice we give to the minister, but also how the needs of community members filter through the IDP process, and then eventually find its way, I think, in what we call the provincial strategic plan in the province. So it is key. We are almost on the verge of making appointments, but obviously the committee has decided against it based on certain outcomes of this recruitment and selection process. And that's why we actually really want to find someone that can actually deal with that position in the department. Obviously, it places additional burden on those that are in the system. So, for instance, they have been acting, but in the case of IDP, but it's also Nazuka has personally taken charge there. And obviously, there's an acting person by Colin in disaster relations. But we also feel it now, given the amount of disasters that we have now experienced and so on. So we all together take additional responsibility just to manage that. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so there's basically two areas that we look at when it comes to this kind of support. The one is our own officials, and then the other one is the public who we have to go and assist. And obviously, it's not only a question of providing them with humanitarian support, but also with psychosocial support if they've suffered a particularly traumatic incident. So we do have the contract as indicated in the document in the report with Metropolitan Health. So we would go through that system if a person requested that, and then they would provide us with counselling to take us through that process. However, what we have found, and this is a thing in disaster management and emergency services over the years, is that people are much more comfortable speaking to their peers, to their colleagues, because their colleague experienced the situation with them. It's just something that has happened over the years that people have been much more comfortable speaking to somebody who was actually there. So we do have two of our staff that are trained in being able to do that kind of peer debrief. As Graham mentioned, we do two types of debrief. The one debrief is looking at lessons learned. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And we build that into our planning for our next operations. But we also do a debrief on where we all sit around and discuss the incident, and if it had specific issues that could have caused distress within the staff, then it comes out in that area. We also have a number of NGOs that we work with who assist us in going to do psychosocial support. So big NGOs that we work with not only, again, provide the humanitarian aid, but they also provide that kind of support if we ask for it. And then social development as well will go in, and the department will go in and assist as well. If we identify the need, we will mobilize whoever the appropriate people are. Thank you.
Eden Morris is on the water as well as the hydrologist, just the quality of the water in relation to the consultation, the consultants.
Chair, Maurice Brand from Infrastructure. Honourable Member, in terms of our responsibility to assist municipalities, we are appointing these hydrologists for two purposes. On the one hand, it's to assist us with the rollout of our drought and water resilience plan. And that is basically where they go and find water for us. And then they test the water quality of the groundwater to make sure that, for instance, there is high levels of iron or manganese in certain areas, to make sure that that is within the normal limits, and to ensure then that that information is provided to the hydrologist, to the consultants that then designs the water treatment work. But the ongoing water quality then within the network of the municipality, that is not part of the hydrologist work. That is part of our water resilience program. So where there is a problem in that area, that will be picked up by us. And like we indicated before, we're working with Department of Water and Sanitation. We've got a committee looking at then the water quality coming from the Blue Drop results. The second reason why we appoint them, all municipalities are obliged to, in terms of water use licenses, to do certain kind of work where they've got to, for instance, apply for water use license. They've got to make sure that they stay within the stipulations of what is dictated in that water use license. For instance, one I can mention, to make sure that there is proper sustainable water abstraction to protect our groundwater resources. And then in terms of the 15-year plan, we already indicated that both the presentation and report can be made available.
That all the answers, colleagues? Madam Masego, are you?
Yeah, just a follow-up of the question I asked, and I didn't hear the response.
Okay.
If there is a toll-free number for the wellness, because sometimes I would want to engage with my fellow colleague, but there is another option of if I want to talk to whoever, but just on a phone, that they don't have to see me. Looking at the HIV and the TB management program that is there, that I've learned in my past life that for registering for the management, the toll-free number was what was working for people that were finding out that they're HIV positive, that they can have a support through the toll-free number where they can call to get to be assisted. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, it's 080-061-1155.
Okay, they will send the number. Colleagues, are you covered now? Just one follow-up, ne? Okay, yeah, I'll give you.
No, thank you very much to the department for the responses. What I would just like to ask in terms of these SMS vacancies, and the HOD did tell us, and my understanding, the one is for an IDP manager, I presume, disaster. I don't know what the title of the disaster one is, and someone dealing with the JDMA. So now what I would like to ask, when we heard the explanations around the problems of offering one-year contracts and trying, the HOD saying he's limited in terms of his options to intervene directly. But what I just want to ask in that regard, the full names of these particular posts, and what was the date that these vacancies originally became vacancies? In other words, what was the date on which these positions were no longer filled? Because I just want to get a sense. It's not like 6 months, 12 months. It's clearly more than that. So I want to know from when. When did those vacancies start?
The director IDP passed on the 9th of November 2021.
So which, all of them?
No, I'm talking about the director IDP. He died on the 9th of November 2021.
Okay, and any, sorry, Chair, any information on the disaster one and the JDMA one?
It's a director disaster operations, and it became vacant in December 2020, well, 22 last year.
December 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Colleagues, if you can also send that information via Johan on my left, and then you'll just send it to the department, to the members. Is that fine?
No, Chair, no, thanks. I think that's fine to get the date. I just in particular want to express a concern that, with all these issues around local economic developments, the critical importance of IDPs in terms of community participation, discussing what the priorities are, etc. Maybe the department must ask us to help you with headhunting if you really can't find people, because I think we can find people who are able, we can assist with that, because I don't think, I hear that don't if 9 November 2021, 2022, so it'll almost be 2 years now. And I think we really cannot go on with such vacancies, but I'm happy to get we've got 2 of the dates. We'll get the JDMA date. And I think the officials must indicate to us if there's anything we can do, in terms of, what sort of flexibility would the HOD or the MEC actually require to make filling these posts more attractive? And then if we have to have legislative changes or whatever, you must speak to us. Some of us, are part of the organization that is governing the country as a whole, and we are in charge of legislation, so we can help,
Chair, we understand that there's a new term for political office bearers coming up, and that some of them will want to jump ship and will apply. But I can tell you now, it's quite a serious process that we're going to go through. So Yeah, but thank you. No, we understand the importance that of filling these positions and filling it also with quality people. Otherwise, you're not going to move forward. So yeah, we will keep on and doing our utmost best too. But there's a broader picture within government system, and that's why I flagged it. I think you're going to sit with a lot of committees, and I am not going to shy away anymore to fight for our officials for their rightful salaries. They don't get bonuses. They go through the whole process. We cut on the wrong places, I think, as a government, as a whole, not the department now, as a whole. And if we not, there's a couple of sayings, let me not go into that, but if you're going to pay peanuts, you're not going to get qualified people and quality people. And we in competition also with the private sector in a lot of these positions. So I really think it's important for me to flag that, to leave it with the standing committee, because we're all in this together. We need to have the kind of packages so that we attract professional people that can do the job. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I know we broadly aiming to finish up now, but it's just linked to this issue that HOD mentioned, okay, and the MEC said now we're not giving bonuses because of this directive, but then they also mentioned that there is the issue of the, I think it's the notch increases, né? Right? So I don't really see in any of these tables under HR unless I've missed it. Which could you just refer me to the table which will give us an indication about how many officials in this year actually did receive notch increases? Is it somewhere?
Colleagues, I think those, can you provide that information?
We can ask more detailed questions for written reply on this one. It's quite interesting. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Minister, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence, with your HOD and your entire team. It has been my first meeting, working with you. It's less than 7 months now. And I must say that I don't want to be you, because in terms of your responsibility, you belong to a certain organization. When you act on municipalities, you are also blamed. If you don't act, you also blamed. So I really understand the kind of work that you guys really do. And I have to say that I appreciate the kind of work that you've been doing. And all I can say is that I wish you all the best, in the near future, because we are coming to the end of a term. Next year, you'll find new people, you'll find new individuals that you are going to work with. But fortunately for you as officials, you'll be here. Continue doing what you are doing. And I wish you only the best. I know we are going to be sitting with Scopa, and everything else will be done by the chair in terms of your clean orders and all that kind of stuff, and all the questions that we ask colleagues is not to embarrass you, but is to make you better. We are here to strengthen your hand, and we are not here to embarrass you. I wish you well. We'll be having lunch at 12. Please make sure you have lunch. And then with those few words, thank you very much. Bye, Danki. And Kosika Jolakama for school board. Yeah, ne? Colleagues, is there any one of you who's got resolutions?
Based on that, this is the last annual report before the new term. I think it will be information that Member Dugmore have requested to receive. As for me, maybe the resolution is to thank all the department and all the disaster management for really bringing it when they were needed, and more going to face the fire season, also to just thank them in advance for that. That's all from me, Chair.
Thank you. Member Dugmore.
Thanks, Chair. I think I don't know, possibly the committee coordinator noted this, but remember we were informed that there was a 1.3 billion loss of revenue to municipalities given decreases in the sale of electricity. I wonder if we could just ask the department, as a resolution, to provide us with the detail of that, the breakdown. I'd be very interested to see that. And then remember all those issues of transfer payments where they were saying that by June the 30th. So in all of those situations, can we get a report as to whether in fact the funds transferred were spent or not? And there's a whole lot of, as you know, there's different categories of those transfer payments. And then just in particular, I wonder, they mentioned Cederberg had spent the money in regard to the Tusong Center, but there's a delay in Duiselsdorp. Can they just give us a more detailed information about the reasons for the delay and where that issue is now? And then right towards the end, remember we asked that report, is it a water
presentation?
The last consultant, there was a consultant involved here. Yeah, where's D? I'll give it to you now.
It's 115.
It's right at the,
115. 114.
11.
Is it not one? Zutari. Is it Zutari?
Yes.
115. 115.
Yeah, where was that list of all the consultants on page?
It's starting at 113 to 115.
113.
113 at the bottom. It's on G.
You know what? I'm looking at the annual performance plan, not the annual report. Sorry, 113.
113.
Yes, it was Zutari's report, that one of the integrated route, and that was another thing. And then I think the chair asked, and they said they would provide the date at when the JDMA vacancy, when that post became vacant. And that's fine.
Member Murray?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Member Nkondlo in.
There's no Member Nkondlo here, bro.
Sorry, I've got Member Nkondlo in my brain. I have to send her something. Member Maseko. In thanking the department for their hard work and everything that they will be doing going into the next fire season and drought season. I also just wanted to ask, adding on to, let me get my names right here, Member Dugmore. Member Dugmore's point on getting further information, in particular on MSCOA and the leads there for Beaufort West, and how they're actually working together with Treasury to ensure that there is a recovery there and that the systems are being used appropriately and the staff are being trained appropriately. I think I'll leave it there.
Colleagues, then from my side, it's just to thank you for your manner and how you conducted yourself during questioning, and also to those members that were online. I wanted you to be here because I feel safer when you are here instead of online. So I'm glad that you were able to join us, and especially remember Maseko, and to John and Mfundo, thank you very much for your work that you do behind the scenes, for making sure that there is tea for people and there is lunch for people as well. And colleagues, thank you very much for always being there. for the kind of work we've been doing as a committee. We might not agree on how we should do things, but I think I appreciate the manner in how we respect each other and how we conduct ourselves in front of people. With those few words, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is lunch at 12:30, eh?
Let me say this.